Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto is Alikard. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. When Alikard arrived in Suna he was just a mile away from Sunagakure. He just started walking to Sunagakure. He was in his red suit, cravat, fedora hat and orange glasses. Why did he have drop in the mid of the day when the sun is at its highest? When he was at the gates he was halted by Tamari. She hasn't changed much at all in his eyes. She said with a demanding voice. Who are you and what is your business here? Alikard just smirked and said. My name is Alikard and I'm here to visit an old friend of mine named Sabaku no Gaara. A Suna Chunin just said. What do you want with our cage? Alikard's smirk got wider and said. Oh, he made cage alright, that's impressive, I have to give my congratulations. Tamari then interrupted him. He isn't here at the moment, he's kidnapped by two members of the Akatsuki. Alikard frowned and commanded one of the Chunin. You, get me something that has his smell, now. The Chunin looked at Tamari with hesitation, she just nodded and he left. By the way, are those Akatsuki strong? Asked the Nosferatu. Incredible strong, said Tamari while nodding. Alikard just said, good. It was then that a male voice butted in. They may be strong for the likes of you, but for an elite like me they're nothing. The voice belonged to none other than Sasuke Uchiha. He was here with Sakura, Kakashi and with a black-haired nin, Sai. Alikard wanted to kill him but now wasn't the time. Silence, the adults are talking. He said dismissingly. Sasuke, who was furious by the comment, was then supported by Sakura. You shouldn't be talking like that to Sasuke-kun. He's head of the Uchiha clan. I couldn't care less if you're in a clan or not. Sasuke was about to retort but a Chunin arrived with a gourd made of sand. This is Kage-sama's gourd as you requested, said the Chunin as he set the gourd down. Alikard just walked up to the gourd and sniffed it. Ah, what a delightful smell. This surprised Tamari and the Chunin. Gaara's gourd smelled of blood. What kind of man would find the smell of blood delightful? Thought Tamari. Well, it was nice meeting you, Suna nin, but I have a friend to save. Goodbye. He then dissolved in a group of bats and followed a trail he picked up. Sensei, did he just become a group of bats? Asked Sakura, but instead of Kakashi answering it was Sai. Not necessarily, it could be genjutsu followed by a shunsen, but that takes a lot of skill to do, so either he has an unknown Kekkei Genkei or he is very skilled, either way he's dangerous. You're exaggerating, didn't you see how he clothed? He's not a shinobi, he didn't even had a forehead protector. Said Sakura, but then Kakashi intervened. Sai is right. He's dangerous, but he also implied that he can find someone with his smell. The sample he used was Gaara's sand, but since that the smell is mixed with the smell of his other victims means he has an incredible smell surpassing even the Inuzuka, so I guess it's a Kekkei Genkei. Tamari's sand, who was he? Tamari just said. I don't know, his name was Alikard, he said he was a friend of him. I didn't know that that freak had friends. Said Sasuke. Tamari glared at him and said. Come, I will bring you to my brother who fought one of the Akatsuki. The team followed her in the village, but Kakashi had his mind on Alikard. He definitely showed some hostility, or at least resentment at us, I wonder why. While Team 7 was busy in Suna, Alikard flew through the air towards Gaara in bat form, his mind on Konoha. I really wanted to tear that piece of shit apart, but that will only bring unnecessary attention to me. I will have to think this through or I will end like 100 years ago. Stripped of my power and a slave to the Helsing family. It has been a long time since I've used tactics, I probably am a bit rusty. While he was thinking on his plan to destroy Konoha he arrived at an obstacle, namely a boulder with a piece of paper on it. When he arrived it was nighttime, he shifted into his normal form, looked at the boulder and said. Open sesame. When the boulder didn't move, he phased slipped through the boulder. When he was fully formed he looked at the scene. A giant statue with many eyes which on the fingers 9 people, 7 ethereal, 2 solid. They apparently didn't notice him. In the air was Gaara suspended in some kind of energy, probably chakra. He then stepped to the 9 people, announcing his presence to them. One of the people, he apparently had ringed eyes, spoke. It seems that we were followed, the ritual will have to wait until he has been eliminated. Deidara, Sasori kill him. With that the 7 figures and the statue disappeared and Gaara fell on the ground. It looks we will have some fun before we start the extraction. Said the blonde bomber. Sasori looked at him and said, Deidara, be careful, I don't get a reading on his chakra. Alikard just pulled out his guns and took a stance. Deidara put his hands in the satchels beside him and Sasori remained started the battle by sending his metal tail forward. Alikard just aimed his castle and fired 6 shots. 3 hit the tail rendering it out of balance. The other 3 hit the was on the back bludgeoning the wood but not completely piercing it. Alikard was about to shoot Sasori but then he noticed 2 birds coming at him. He just shot them with his jackal forcing them to explode prematurely. Sasori used the given time and shoot a volley of senbon at him. Alikard didn't bother to dodge. He just aimed his jackal at Sasori and shot at the puppeteer. When the bullets hit the puppet armor it broke the puppet and the puppeteer quickly left the puppet. It's a long time since Hariko has been destroyed, but it's over. Some of the senbon have hit your vitals and even if it didn't the poison will kill you. Alikard responded by chuckling and then by laughing maniacally. What's so funny? Asked Deidara. I'm just happy that there's still idiots like you. Did you really think that some needles and poison will kill me? Then the senbon left Alikard's body with no wounds to show afterwards. Come on, the night is still young, let's have some fun together. Said Alikard excited by having a good fight ahead. It seems I have no choice, I will have to use this. And with that Sasori took out a scroll and out of it came a puppet. He had black hair and was dressed in a black. I haven't used the sandame in a long time. A black substance started to ooze out of the puppet's mouth. Alikard identified it as iron. He was about to react when suddenly 2 giant centipedes rose from the ground encircling his legs then exploding. Alikard was blown away by the explosion against the rock at the entrance. Deidara just said, don't underestimate us. Sasori ma, he's done for. Sasori was about to turn around but he was interrupted by laughter from Alikard who was already standing. You two are very amusing. With that Alikard shot a volley at them. The black sand rose to protect them both. Sasori counteracted by having the sandame raise his arm at Alikard and suddenly several other mechanical arms shot out of them. Alikard swayed to the left and shot the most left of the arms. The rest just hit nothing but air or rock. He then shot the different clay birds of Deidara. Sasori then sent waves of sand at Alikard, giving the two a breather. Sasori, man, how does he that with that weapon? The weapon throws pieces of metal at an incredible speed. The speed causes the extreme damage. But why aren't they affected by the puppet and how did he make clay birds explode? It's the speed, your clay bombs are like balloons filled with chakra. The piece of metal will cause the membrane of the balloon to rupture causing the chakra to be released. For the being immune for my puppet the metal is probably not magnetic. Said the puppeteer. Alikard then shot at them, they jumped away. Alikard then shot Deidara's hand off and in the legs removing him from the fight. Sasori just looked at Alikard and was about to send his metal sand at him. Alikard dodged and shot at the puppet but the sand protected it. Alikard just charged the puppet and punched through the sand and punched the puppet to pieces. Sasori just looked at Alikard and said, to use my greatest art on one person, it's such a shame, be prepared for my red secret performance of 100 puppets. And with that 100 puppets appeared, the puppets surrounded Alikard and charged him. Alikard shot as many as he could with his gun as he could when they're close. He sheaths his guns and started to use hand-to-hand combat. In the end it became a battle of attrition. Alikard destroyed puppet after puppet but with less puppets. Sasori could give each puppet more attention making them to kill. The puppets cut him with their weapons but they healed immediately. In the end Alikard destroyed the last puppet. Then Alikard walked to him. It was a great fight, Sasori, but in the end you just weren't strong enough. He took out his jackal but then he had to evade a jet of flames. He then looked at Sasori and saw a tube out of his arm. So you made yourself a living puppet, said Alikard. Sasori just said, yes, I made myself a puppet making me eternal and with this body I will kill you. Alikard reported with, you fool, there's no such thing as eternal and you can't kill me, because only human can kill monsters. And with that he shot Sasori in the heart. How? I smelled it. It seems my art will be lost. These were the last words of Sasori off the red sands. Alikard just looked at Deidara who was in fright, seeing the fight. Alikard just walks at him. Deidara tries to get away but with his legs shot he didn't get away far. Alikard took his head in both arms and bit him in the neck, absorbing the mad bomber. He took his gun and aimed at a spot and shot at him. It hit the wall. Damn, he got away. Alikard then took Gaara and woke him up. When Gaara woke up he looked at Alikard. His eyes frightened him. They looked so much like his own before he was saved by Naruto. The only difference was that the stranger's ones showed more control. Where am I? Who are you and what happened with Akatsuki? Alikard just grinned and said, we're in Akatsuki's lair where I killed 2 of their members. Gaara's eyes widened. He just defeated 2 members while he couldn't defeat 1. But you still haven't said who you are? Alikard's grin got bigger. I'm hurt, don't you recognize your good old friend? He said in mock hurt. What did he mean friend? The only one who could qualify as a friend was impossible, Naruto? But you're supposed to be dead. He stuttered out. Oh, I am, was his response. But how are you standing here? What happened to you? He was about to ask more questions but Alikard stopped him. I will be telling you this later, but we are in enemy territory. Now go to that boulder and make the hand signs rat, boar and dragon and channel chakra in the rock. Gaara did as commanded and then the boulder moved away opening the passageway. Gaara was about to leave but Alikard said, my name is Alikard, don't want my enemies to become aware of my existence, don't we? Gaara just nodded and levitated some sand to carry them both. Gaara invited him on the platform but he shook his head and said, it's such a beautiful night, let's just enjoy it for a little longer. Gaara looked at him for a second and let himself fall on the ground and they both walked in the woods together. You change, said Gaara. Alikard just chuckled. More than you think. So how does it feel to be Cage? Gaara glanced at him. It feels good, to be respected, to be loved. Is it respect or is it fear? Do they love you or do they secretly despise you? Do they see you as a great leader or do they see you as someone useful? Asked Alikard in return. What do you mean? Of course they love, respect me and see me as a great leader, otherwise they wouldn't have made me Cage. Said Gaara, afraid that all his efforts would be in vain. Not necessarily, they could have thrown you a bone. With the dead of the Jinchuriki in Konoha, they would be afraid that you, their weapon, would turn against them. So they give you the pretense that you still had a chance to be loved. They even would give you the title of Cage. It would seem of course that you pull the strings while instead they pull them from your shadow. You would be nothing then a dog, their well-trained guard dog. Are you saying that all my efforts are in vain? Asked Gaara. I don't know, but we'll see. I'm just saying how it could be. Said Alikard. They continued to walk until they met the edge of the forest at dawn. They then arrived at a meadow. On the meadow were several Suna nin with Temari, Chio and the 4 Konoha ninja. The pair slowly walked to them. When the group noticed them they said, Cage-sama, you're back. We thought you were dead. Welcome back. Alikard looked Gaara in the eyes and said, I guess you were right. Alikard smiled honestly at him. Gaara just looked at him and gave him a smile in return. Indeed, my friend. Thank you, Gaara. Gaara then looked at Alikard confused. For what? He asked. Alikard just said, for fulfilling my dream. Temari, why are Konoha nin here? Asked Gaara. We hired them to help with us rescuing you. I'm sorry if it disturbs you. Said Temari, a bit nervous knowing Gaara disliked Konoha since the death of Naruto. It's not a bother, but since I'm safe, Wait, we still have a use for them. Intervened Alikard. What is that? Asked Gaara. Well, you need to be escorted while the Suna nin raid the Akatsuki base for information on them. Kakashi then decided to join the conversation. That will be an extra mission. Kakashi gave himself a pat on the back for his plan to earn Konoha some money, but Alikard burst his bubble. Sorry, but this still count as the first since Gaara isn't in Sunagakure. That's a good idea. Chio, you take the Chunin and raid the base, the rest will return to Sunagakure. Said Gaara. My friend, I would advise you since the old woman would hide information about his grandson. Gaara looked him in the eye and asked, how did you know that? Human minds are far too easy to invade. Was heard in Gaara's mind. How did you that, and what about Shukaku? Asked Gaara in shock. Alikard just mentally chuckled. Just a basic ability and Shukaku will behave. Won't you? Asked Alikard with a predatory grin at Shukaku, who was cowering inside his gourd-formed prison. Why yes. To let Shukaku cower in fear. What are you? Thought Gaara. Alikard chuckles. Dead, I will leave your mind. For the outsiders it looked that Alikard and Gaara had a staring competition. Gaara broke the gaze and said, I'm sorry Chio, you will return with me. Tamari, you will lead the group. The base is at the center of the forest inside a cave. With that, Tamari and the Suna nin left. Gaara turned at Chio and said, I'm sorry, but he convinced me. Chio just smiled a bit at him. It's alright, the man was right. I would let my emotions take control when it comes to my grandson, and that could make things worse. Come on, let's go. And with that, the Konoha nin, Gaara, Chio and Alikard were off. During the journey, Kakashi decided to get some information on Gaara's savior. Alikard was it. How did you save the case cage? Alikard, sensing Kakashi's intentions, decided to play a bit. I went in, destroyed the 2 members of the Akatsuki, woke up Gaara and left. That simple? Asked Kakashi. Yes, said the vampire. If they were beaten that easily by you, then they were weaklings. Said Sasuke arrogantly. Yeah, Sasuke would take far less time to defeat them. Supported Sakura. Tell me, you two, how many S-class nin have you defeated? Asked Alikard. The 2 remained silent. Let me guess, 0, isn't it? Continued Alikard. I would have had those 2 if you didn't intervene. Said Sasuke angrily. But you haven't, so at the moment I'm stronger at the moment. Said Alikard. Why you? I will show you who is stronger. Yelled Sasuke while preparing hand signs. Stop it. Now is not the time, Sasuke, we have a mission. Said Kakashi, while grabbing his wrist. Sasuke stopped but glared at Alikard. This is not over, not by a long shot. I wouldn't have it another way. Said Alikard with an insane grin. Alikard, do you come from Kiri or have any parents from there? Asked Sakura. No, said Alikard. Then why have you such sharp teeth? They say that the people there have such teeth. I am an exception. They continued to travel until they arrived at Sanagakure. Gaara then addressed the Konoha shinobi. Although I don't like you, I will pay you for the mission. With that, he commanded a Chunin to get the money. With that, a Chunin came with the money. Gaara gave them the money. Now you can leave my territory. It's already enough that my daimyo forced me to continue the alliance after what you did to Naruto. There's a problem with you, see. We want to be paid for healing your brother Kankuro after he was poisoned by Sasori. That itself is another A-rank mission. Said Kakashi, trying to get as much from Gaara. Gaara, I advise you to decline their request, that since they needed him for your rescue, that means that still falls under the first contract. Said Alikard. You stay out of it, this is business between Suna and Konoha. Said Kakashi with venom in his voice. But that doesn't mean that he isn't right, so I will not pay for it. In fact, I should demand payment for the use of our greenhouse, but I will let it slide, since we're not as stingy as you. Fine, Team 7, let's return. Kakashi and his team went back to Konoha. Now, what are you going to do now, Alikard? Asked Gaara. First I am going to need information, then I will plan my next move. Said Alikard. Then can I offer you a place to stay in my home? Asked Gaara. I am fine with that. Said Alikard. Gaara walked towards his office. The populace greeted him with a smile. Alikard just wandered around the town. After a while he decided that it was enough and went towards the cage tower. At the tower he was greeted by Tamari. Alikard-san, I would like you to come to the tower for my report. There are some things that doesn't seem right, maybe you can help me with them. Together they walked to Gaara's office. Tamari knocked on the door. Come in, said Gaara. When they entered Gaara's office, Kankuro was by his side. When he saw Alikard, he was a bit intimidated, but he didn't let it show. Tamari, who is this guy? Tamari was about to respond, but Gaara beat him to it. He's an old friend of mine. He saved me from the Akatsuki, defeated 2 members. Kankuro paled when he hears that. So you defeated Sasori of the Red Sands? Alikard just added. And Deidara the Mad Bomber. Kankuro paled even more. So Tamari, do you have found something in the cave? Yes, we found a lot of puppets in the room, but there were some abnormalities. Like what? Asked Gaara. The first thing were pieces of silver, also pieces of a gold alloy. They were all around the cave and some were even found in the puppets. I suppose they had to do something with Alikard's abilities. She then showed them a bullet and looked at Alikard. Am I right? Alikard just nodded. The other strange thing was that the only part of the 2 was an arm. I don't know where the rest of the bodies are. Alikard, do you know something about it? Yes, Sasori's body should be with the puppets and I disposed off Deidara's body. Kankuro just looked at Alikard. What do you mean with the puppets? He made himself a human puppet. The only human part of him was a purple round container. He also made the Sandaime case cage a puppet. The three looked at Alikard with wide eyes. Gaara was the first to return his bearings. I will label this as a kinjutsu. It's just immoral. Kankuro was about to protest but he then thought about it and remained quiet. Gaara then continued. Is that all, Temari? Yes, Gaara. He then aimed his attention at Alikard while making a sound barrier from sand. You owe me an explanation, Naruto. The two siblings looked at Alikard in shock. What? They yelled. You look like you're seeing a ghost, said Alikard calmly. How did you survive? Asked Temari. I didn't. Huh, how is that possible? Asked Kankuro. Simple, I'm dead. Seeing that is it going to be a long conversation. Gaara, could you do me a favor and get me a blood pack or two? Said Alikard. Gaara made 3 chairs of sand. Alikard, Temari and Kankuro sat down on the chairs. Fine, now tell me what happened at your execution. I'm not quite sure. I think that after my death, I was being dragged inside a new body with my memories sealed, but during an event, the rape, I regained them. Explained the Nosferatu. What was that event? Asked Temari. It's a personal one, said Alikard. They were talking but then a sand clone of Gaara came in with a blood pack. Alikard just conjured a glass out of nowhere. The trio just stared at Alikard. He then took the blood pack from the clone. He ripped the corner of the pack and poured his glass full with blood. He placed his glass on the table, took a rubber band out of his coat and tied the blood pack stuck. He placed the blood pack on the table and took the glass and stirred it. He then took a sniff of the wine and took a sip. A male, 55 years old with blood group AB positive, not bad. A strong, well-aged flavor. The three still looked dumbfounded at Alikard. Alikard noticed it. Where were my manners? Do you want some as well? The three snapped out of it. Gaara was the first to respond. Sorry, but we had to decline. Temari was shocked by the polite response of his brother. Gaara, how do you allow him to do such things? He's drinking human blood, that's just wrong. Gaara just remained impassive. As I see it, he's not completely human, so he's eating like a normal person is eating food. It's just wrong, can't he just drink animal blood? Muttered Temari, knowing his brother was right. Animals can't sustain us, it would only slow down the rate we degenerate. Do you still have more questions? Asked Alikard. Yes, what are you? Was the question from Kankuro. I'm a vampire, a child of the night. And vampires drink human blood to sustain themselves? Alikard just nodded. Do you have other powers? Asked Gaara. I can't tell them all, since we can't be sure that we aren't overheard. But let me tell this. We have superhuman strength and speed, enhanced senses and advanced healing. Anything else? Not that I could think of. With that, Gaara let the sand barrier fall. Temari just wanted to leave quickly. But Kankuro asked Alikard something. Since you drink blood like we eat food, do you have a favorite flavor? Alikard smirked and said, I do love female virgins and blondes, just leaves such a refined aftertaste. Temari paled and left the room as quickly as she could. Kankuro left the room, leaving only Gaara and Alikard. That was a mean thing to do, Alikard. I seriously meant everything. Gaara then aimed some killer intent at Alikard. You will leave my sister or any inhabitant of Sunagakure alone. Alikard just shrugged of the killer intent. I didn't had any intentions of the kind. With that, the killing intent was gone. So what are you going to do now? I don't know yet. Alikard wanted to leave but a Chunin came in. Case-Cage-sama, I have bad news. The Case-Cage looked at the Chunin and said, Go on. Konoha has invaded and took over Wave Country. Gaara's eyes widened. What? He was about to continue but he was stopped by the laughter of Alikard. Gaara, I know what to do now, I'm going to Wave Country. Alikard was walking through the woods. He was at a clearing that served as part of the border between Suna and Konoha. He was then stopped by a ninja, judging by the headband on his forehead. Halt! Who are you and what are your intentions? He was short and from the looks of it a genin. The genin had brown upstanding hair, wore a green jacket with gray pants and a blue scarf. Alikard recognized him as Konohamaru. He remembered how the boy denounced him as his Ni-san. Flashback. Dungeon before execution. Naruto was in his cell waiting for the next beating or session, whichever came first. Suddenly he received a fist in his gut. So another session, he thought. He noticed that the fist was small, so he deduced that the Sandame's law wasn't in effect anymore. He then looked up and saw the face of Konohamaru. Naruto's face remained impassive even when he saw the forms of Moegi and Udon. So you too, Konohamaru, Moegi, Udon? He was then slapped by Moegi. Shut it, demon. You are the reason why most of our family died, they died battling you, I hate you. She now was crying tears. Naruto didn't say anything. The trio just turned around and left. Konohamaru just took a last glance. With that they were gone. Flashback end. Maybe they have changed their ways after 3 years. They did become older and hopefully smarter over the years. He then looked at Konohamaru's mind and saw that they haven't changed a bit. Oh, well guess not. Alikard then sent a mental command to the poor boy. The boy then tremblingly took a kunai out of his pouch. He brought the kunai to his neck, the trembling intensified. The knife then cut his skin. Konohamaru began sweating. He was about to slice further, but he was stopped by a gloved hand. The hand belonged to Ebisu. His attire hasn't changed at all since Alikard had last met him. He was accompanied by 2 other genin. They were Moegi and Udon. Honorable grandson, what are you doing and who is this guy? Asked Ebisu, while looking warily at Alikard. Konohamaru looked at the ground. I don't know, I had this sudden urge to slit my throat, it was really strong, I couldn't resist it. Ebisu then glared at Alikard. That was a genjutsu, but instead of affecting the senses, he affected your desires directly. It means that he's a extremely skilled genjutsu user, so be careful, honorable grandson. Now who are you and what are your intentions? Alikard just smirks and said. I'm just a traveler passing by. Ebisu narrowed his eyes. Name? You may call me Alikard. Do you have any authorization to pass this border? Alikard didn't say anything. Then I'm afraid we can't let you pass. Come back in a few days, it's just that we have had a raid by Akatsuki, a week ago. Alikard just ignored him and started to walk towards Wave. He was then stopped by a kunai aimed at him courtesy of Ebisu. I will state it again, you're not allowed to pass this border. We will enforce even if we have to resort to violence. There was a silence between the two until an almost inaudible whisper was heard. Do you think that you can stop me? Ebisu just pushed his glasses up and said. I know, we can. Alikard just started walking and said. You're welcome to try. With that the battle was started. Konohamaru charged him and engaged him in hand-to-hand combat. He threw a punch at him. Alikard just sidestepped and drew his castle and dodged a kick aimed at him by Konohamaru. He then aimed at Udon, who noticed the fact that Alikard aimed at his arm and dodged the bullet. The bullet still grazed his arm. Meanwhile Moegi and Ebisu started to do hand signs. Right under Alikard's feet spikes raised out of the ground. Alikard dodged them with ease by jumping backwards. Moegi used a genjutsu on him but it didn't work. Alikard just aimed at Udon again, who was drawing on the floor again. He rolled away, this time evading the bullet perfectly. At the same time Alikard aimed a punch at Konohamaru, who dodged by doing a backflip, placing him beside Ebisu. Moegi then asked a question. Ebisu-sensei, why did my genjutsu didn't affect him? Ebisu pushed up his glasses again and said. Moegi, don't forget he's a genjutsu user. He probably recognized your hand signs and dispelled genjutsu immediately, now switch to formation 2. This time Moegi drew 2 kunai. She charged and slashed at the vampire. Alikard just dodged and aimed at Udon again, who jumped away just in time. Ebisu and Konohamaru both prepared their own technique. Earth style. Earth dragon bullet. With that several balls of mud were shot out of a dragon made of mud, at Alikard. Fire style. Fire dragon bullet. Konohamaru blew a stream of fire at the mud bullets which caused them to ignite. Alikard skillfully dodged the flaming bullets thrown at him. Ebisu just smirks and said. You fell right into our trap, now everyone. Ebisu, Konohamaru and Moegi each jumped away to one of the places where Udon had been drawing on the ground. At those places a seal glowed, they pumped chakra into them while saying. Gravity enforcement seal. Alikard was then pulled towards the ground. He fell first on his knee, then his hand and after that his entire body. Ebisu then started his explanation. You see, you made a good choice to attack Udon-kun first, since he was the main part of our plan. He was drawing the gravity enforcement seal. It increases the gravity between the 4 seals several times. It's over. The 4 started through hand signs. The 4 cried out. Fire style. Great fireball technique. Alikard was hit from all sides by a stream of fire. Seeing that his opponent was incinerated, Ebisu turned around and said. Well done team, now let's return to base 2. But he was interrupted by laughter. What the? He turned around but was then punched by a red blur. Ebisu crashed through a tree and slammed against next one. Unable to move since his spine was damaged, he looked up and saw to his surprise that it was Alikard. On his coat were embers visible. How? He asked. Alikard just looked at him and said, how what? How did I survive the fire, or how did I escape your little seals? The seal. Alikard just smirked. I'm just strong to lift the extra weight due to the seal. Ebisu's eyes just widened. Such strength, why didn't you kill me? Alikard's smirk just widened, his eyes gleaming with pleasure and madness. I still have some use for you, now to deal with the small ones. He turned around and walked towards the trio who were talking. Konohamaru-kun, our plan didn't work, said a distraught Moegi. And Ebisu-sensei is defeated, what do we do? Added Udon. They both looked at Konohamaru, who was having an internal debate. He looked at Alikard and then at his teammates and said, guys, we have to use that jutsu. The two other members looked surprised at him. Even if he made it? Konohamaru looked he had to swallow a bad pill, but in the end he swallowed and said, it's the only way we can survive, so unless you have another plan we will have to stick to this one. Moegi and Udon looked at Konohamaru and nodded, determined brimming on their faces. The three then looked at Alikard, who was slowly walking towards them. They started to building up chakra and cried out. Why jutsu? The trio each transformed into a well-endowed female. They were all nude, their private parts covered by a wisp of smoke. Alikard didn't show any sign of stopping. To the trio, when Alikard was in front, he flashed his razor-sharp teeth. The trio transformed back and huddled together in fright. Konohamaru then asked a question. How did you resist this jutsu? Nobody ever did. Alikard just laughed and then answered with a question. That technique didn't work on me, because I am its inventor and creator? Moegi then answered. No, it can't be true, its creator is dead, he died 3 years ago. Alikard just smiled an insane smile and started to transform into the form of Naruto. He then said in his old voice, if you want the title of Hokage, you will have to beat me first. Moegi, Udon and even Ebisu were so shocked by this revelation that they couldn't react. Konohamaru looked shocked seeing him back saying those words. It has to be a genjutsu, it has to, you're dead. He made a hand sign and tried to dispel the genjutsu, but to his surprise, the image of Naruto still stands there. He tried several times, but he still stood there. How is this possible? You're supposed to be dead. I am dead, and you will be soon. He transformed back and pulled out his gun and placed it in front of Moegi's mouth and shot. The blood splattered on the two other genin of the squad. He then slowly walked towards Ebisu. You will not get away with this, Konoha will have your head for this. Alikard just laughed. Let them try, many have tried it, it will be a glorious fight. I will crush them. He then bit Ebisu in the neck and started to suck Ebisu's blood out of his neck. Alikard then threw the body of Ebisu away. Konohamaru, seeing his sensei killed, got out of his shock and shouted. You monster, you killed them both. I will kill you. He then went through hand signs and called out. Fire style. Double fire dragon missile. With that 2 dragons came out of his mouth and charged at Alikard. Alikard was then engulfed by the 2 dragons. Konohamaru was relieved that Alikard was dead, but to his surprise he was still standing. Alikard then charged at him and bit him in the neck. Konoha was immediately dead. Alikard then started walking towards Udon while drinking from Konohamaru's corpse. Udon crawled away from Alikard in fright. Monster, get away from me. Alikard dropped Konohamaru's body from out of his mouth and said, people keep telling me that, and what makes that you standing against me? A man, a dog, a monster, or even worse, a coward? Udon's eye widened. Yes, I know, at a moment during your sealing training you realized that it was possible to stop the intent of a Biju once he was sealed. You also realized that I wasn't the Kyuubi, but you didn't tell anyone of this revelation. You didn't even tell your best friends out of fear. You're nothing but a sniveling coward, you're the lowest of the low, you don't deserve to live. He said venomously. After that he bit Udon in the neck harshly and started to suck the blood of Udon. When he had his fill he dropped the corpse on the ground. Suddenly the bushes started to rustle, but Alikard didn't pay attention. Out of the bushes came the body of Ebisu, but he didn't look the same. His skin became purple and some parts were already missing. His eyes were red with a purple glow. He became a ghoul. Then Konohamaru's corpse started, and quickly after that Udon's corpse rose as well. Alikard just walked towards Wave and said, "Ghouls, follow me, we have a country to conquer." On a misty morning in Wave, the two eternal Chunin, Izumo and Kotetsu, were busy doing guard duty on the newly named Great Uchiha Bridge. The bridge was also redecorated with flags of Konoha and the clans of Konoha, especially the Uchiha clan. At the end of the bridge was a gate made of wood which was currently closed. The two Chunin were obliviously bored. And here I thought that conquering a nation would be at least a bit more fun. "Izumo, wanna play a game?" "Alright, what game should we play?" asked Kotetsu. They both thought about it, but before they could come up with something they heard a smooth from the mist. "What about catch?" Before they could answer, kunai came flaying at them. One hit Izumo in the shoulder and another one hit Kotetsu in the stomach. The rest just missed. They then looked up and they both saw Alikard without his hat and glasses coming at them. "It seems that my ghouls can't throw that well, but still enough for the task at hand. And what about you two? You were supposed to catch them. Didn't you want to play? And here I brought you some playmates for you." The two Chunin saw then three figures through the mist. When they recognized them, they gasped. "Those are," said Kotetsu, "Ebisu, Udon and Konohamaru. Aren't you happy to see them?" asked Alikard in an amused voice. The two looked at Alikard with anger, hate, but also fear. "You bastard, what did you do with them?" Alikard just said. "They thought they could stop me. They lost, so they are my obedient slaves, and so will you." They both were startled by this piece of information. Izumo recovered first. "We will never submit." Alikard just laughed softly. "You don't have to." He then opened his mouth, showing his razor-sharp teeth, and bit down on Izumo, who screamed. "Izumo!" shouted Kotetsu. He then pulled out a scroll. Then a puff of smoke appeared and with it a mace. He jumped in air and swung his mace downwards. The force of the smash destroyed the ground and dust flew in the air. Kotetsu looked at the cloud, his mace still on the spot. "That bastard is dead, he took my mace head on. I'm sorry Izumo, but the moment he bit you, I knew that you were beyond saving. I will make sure you are to be honored." When the dust cloud dispersed, Kotetsu was greeted by a scene he hadn't expected. In a small crater stood Alikard, one knee, still sucking the blood of Izumo. His hand, which was bleeding, was holding the mace back from destroying himself and his victim. Alikard then stood up, lifting the mace in air. Kotetsu was forced to release his mace. Alikard then threw it away. Kotetsu then took out a single-edged, oversized, curved kunai. He then charged Alikard, who just waited. Just before Kotetsu was about to strike him down, he caught the kunai in his hand. "I caught you." With that, Alikard bit down on his trapped opponent. He screamed before he went down. Alikard then walked towards the gate and kicked it. The gate broke down under the power of the kick and flew open, revealing the capital of Wave, the only place worth conquering in Wave. Free of the tyrant Gato, it had the resources to grow, so in 3 years it tripled in size. What once were buildings of wood are now buildings made of stone. The streets were also made of stone instead of the mud and dirt it once was. At the sides of the streets were lanterns illuminating the city at night. At the center was an enormous bazaar. Around the capital was a wall protecting the village from bandits or other attackers. Alucard's vampiric eyes even determined an old-fashioned theater in the same style as one out of London in the 16th century on the other side of the city behind the wall. At another edge of the capital you could find a large haven. The only thing that was missing were people. There wasn't a single person in the vicinity. Alikard extended his senses and found a mass of people at the bazaar and few people scattered around the city in groups of 4. It seems that the people are being gathered. This makes it easier to fight. "Ghouls, one of you will stay guard here. Of the rest, half you will go left, the other half will go right. Kill everyone wearing a forehead protector and turn them in ghouls. Half of the ghouls that are turned will guard that part of the edge of city. When the groups reach each other, wait for new orders." His eyes glowed, then intensified for a moment. The ghouls then started to split up and march in their respective direction. Alikard then started walking towards the bazaar. Meanwhile, the commanders of the invasion force were waiting in the city hall for their speech to the people wave. The commanders were Tenten, Neji, Lee and Shikamaru. They all managed to get promoted to Chunin, and Neji even became Junin. They didn't change much over the years, they just became older and changed their clothes. Shippuden, Lee was as usual restless. Yosh, we've conquered those unyouthful demon worshippers. Now we just have to introduce the new youthful rules. If I can't do I will run 100 laps around wave on one hand, if I can't do that I will. Tenten, annoyed by Lee's antics, sighed and punched him on the head. Lee, calm down, we will make sure that they don't even mention its name. Troublesome, luckily was the invasion itself very simple. We just had to bribe their guards and mobilize our own troops. Everything went according to plan. Said Shikamaru. You're right, Nara-san. Fate decided that we would be victorious. Still I have unsettling a feeling about this. Said Neji, who has fallen back in his fate business after the execution. Tenten sighed again and said, Neji, you're overthinking it too much. Everything is alright. You're probably? Neji was about to continue, but he was then interrupted by a call coming from one of the guards via the radio system. Command Center, this Alpha 1. We're under attack, can you hear me? We're under attack, said the guard distraught. On the background you could hear the sounds of screaming and jutsu being thrown. Alpha 1, this command center, who is attacking and with how many are they? Asked Shikamaru. It's only one, but he's a monster, we're being slaughtered by him. We, The commanders could clearly hear the blood squirting out of the man's body. They could even hear Alikard sucking the blood out of the ninja's body. Neji, what's the situation? Asked Shikamaru, taking his role as commander. Neji activated his Byakugan and searched the entire capital. I'm already on it. It seems that the enemy isn't alone. He has an invasion force that moves around the edge of the city. It seems that they're moving at a steady pace. They also leave 2 men at strategic post as guard. They're trying to box us in. Their chakra is strange though, it isn't moving through coils anymore. It's more like that their body contains their chakra and that the chakra is moving rampant inside their bodies. Do you have anything to identify them? Asked Shikamaru. Yes, they were wearing forehead protectors. They are from, no it can't be. The trio were rather surprised. Neji was normally stoic and unfazed. Something must be seriously wrong if Neji reacted like this. What is it, Neji? Asked Tenten. They're Konoha shinobi. They even wear our flak jacket. Neji's words rendered them silent. They were all wondering what's going on. Lee was the first to recover. What? Why would those unyouthful shinobi betray us? It was then that Shikamaru spoke. No, Lee, I don't think so, it is probably a virus or a poison. The enemy uses it to turn our shinobi against us. Neji, what about the squad that was being attacked? It as you say, they've been infected as well. Is there anyone nearby? No, I can't find. Wait, no, that can't be right. What isn't right? Asked Shikamaru. It seems that our enemy is a tall man with no chakra. It seems he's walking to another squad. Is he a civilian or more like Lee? Asked Tenten. No, it is not, everyone possesses chakra. Even civilians and Lee, they just have too few or can't use it, even animals have chakra. Shikamaru pondered on the mystery that was the tall stranger. Then what is he, and how can he create such a chaos? I don't know, this never happened before. By all means he should be dead. Yosh, I'm going to challenge this unyouthful enemy to a youthful battle. Said Lee in his optimistic voice. He was about to sped off but Shikamaru took him by the shoulder. No, whoever he is, he defeated 4 Chunin in a flash, we will have to ambush him, how troublesome. He then took a microphone and connected to all shinobi in wave. Attention all shinobi, we're under attack. The enemy is one man but he uses a virus that turns our own forces against us. All shinobi except the ones on the edge of the city, return back to the bazaar. Those on the edge move around the edge to the gate and push those infected shinobi back. Capture them if you can, otherwise kill them. Lock the civilians in the city hall. We need them alive, otherwise we will have an international disaster on our hands. Alikard in the meantime was having the time of his undead life. He just killed the previous in a gruesome way and turned them into ghouls. He ordered those ghouls to go towards the edge as reinforcements. He then moved towards the next group. The squad consisted of 3 males and a female. The first male had brown hair in a ponytail and had a katana at its side. The second one was bald and had a brown mustache. He had a scar at its left eye. The last one had black hair with a goatee. The female had brown hair in a long ponytail that reached her butt. The 4 wore the standard Chunin uniform. The female was apparently receiving a message through a headset. One of the males then noticed Alikard. "Hey, what are you doing here? Everyone is supposed to be at the bazaar. Now go." The female then said, "That is probably the intruder." "What intruder?" asked the bald one. "We're being invaded by him. He uses a virus to turn our people against us. Be careful." The brown-haired one just snorted. "Huh, it's 4-on-1, we have the advantage. Watch and learn." He then charged Alikard with his katana. He tried to cut him diagonally. Just as he was about to hit, Alikard took the katana with his left hand and then bit down on the poor shinobi. The other three looked horrified how he sucked the blood out of his victim. After Alikard had enough, he dropped the shinobi on the ground and walked towards the trio. The only part of his face could see was his mouth, the blood dripping from his teeth. The trio then prepared for battle. The bald one flashed through hand signs and cried out, "Earth style, earth spears." Several spears made of stone shot at Alikard, who just sped up and dodged each one skillfully. The female then sped through hand signs. "Fire style, firewall." She then spewed out a mass flames which took the form of a wall a few feet away from her. Alikard just continued charging through her flame wall. He then bit the goateed shinobi in the neck, and with a show of immense strength he swung the shinobi in an horizontal arc, hitting the other two, stunning them. He dropped the shinobi and quickly bit down on the last male. The female just crawled away from the man who slaughtered her squad. Alikard slowly walked towards her, his eyes glowing red. He then took her neck with his gloved hand and tilted her in the air. He then licked a bit of blood that seeped from the corner of her mouth due to her most recent hit. "A virgin, lucky me, I'm going to enjoy this." The female widened her eyes and her cheeks reddened a bit. She then said in a voice full of fear but with surprisingly a bit of lust, You're going to rape me?" Alikard just chuckled. "Why would I do that?" He then pierced her breast, hitting her lung using his hand. The female spewed out blood. Alikard dropped her on the street and placed himself on his hands and knees. He then started lapping up the blood that fell on the paved street with his tongue. The kunoichi was still alive, but she was clearly suffering judging from the sounds she made. Alikard just continued lapping up the blood. He even ignored the ghouls who were waiting for orders. "Neji, what did you see?" asked Shikamaru, who has already prepared the ambush. They were standing in a street of the bazaar. Normally the street would be filled with shops, but today there weren't any, giving them the extra space needed for battle. Around them were 15 shinobi. Standing guard. He apparently has enhanced strength, speed and durability. His taijutsu is incredible, unorthodox. "What do you mean with unorthodox, Neji?" asked Shikamaru. He bit down on the neck of his opponent and swung him against his other opponent. The trio obviously were surprised by the brutality of their enemy. Lee then commented, "How unyouthful. It's not all. He also is a cannibal and has a taste for female virgins," added Neji. Out of all the information they got, this was the most disturbing one. Shikamaru, Lee and Tenten became a bit green. When Tenten comprehended the female virgin comment, she became red with anger. "What?" growled Tenten. "What an unyouthful behavior." Yes, he licked a bit of blood from the female. He then determined that she was a virgin and proclaimed that he was lucky and that he was going to enjoy it. "Did he rape her?" asked Tenten in distraught. The others didn't fault her. Even the most battle-hardened kunoichi feared rape. No, instead he pierced her chest with his hand and started to lap up her blood. He's still doing it, by the way. The female is still alive, but not for long, judging from the amount of blood lost. "I'm going to kill that bastard," growled Tenten, feeling sympathy for the fallen female. Lee then placed his hand on her shoulder. "We will, Tenten-san." Normally he would shout about youth and other stuff, but even he knew that now wasn't the situation for it. After that a silence ensued. After a while Shikamaru broke it. "How are the fights on the edges doing?" Ghoul point of view. "We have made good progress on completing the orders of Master. We became a group of 8. We are approaching the next group. I see a forehead protector, so I throw some shurikens at it. I miss, the others threw as well, most of them missed as well. Some shurikens hit the men with the forehead protector. They all slump down, they're dead. I start walking towards them. I've reached one of them. I take a piece of him and start eating it. Others are doing the same thing. The dead men then started to change, becoming one of us, servants of Master. 2 of them are staying, the rest of us are going around the edge of the town, turning them into servants of Master. This time they saw us, we threw kunai at them. but a wall of stone rose and the kunai hit the wall. The wall obstructed our path. One of us has reached the wall and starts scratching and punching, but the wall still stands. Then one of the men said, "Earth style, earth spikes." Suddenly spikes appeared on the wall. The one punching the wall was hit by the spikes in the heart and was dead. It did not matter. We continued to charge the forehead protector's wearers. One of the men jumped in the air over the wall and shot a ball of fire at us while saying, "Fire style great fireball." Almost every one of us is dead. Suddenly the rest of us are being pierced by stone spears from the ground. They hit my brains. I can't continue, sorry master. I'm free, thank you guys. End. It seems that the infected have been killed by the opposition. Their transformation made them lose their ability to use chakra. It also released their speed and intelligence. Reported Neji. Shikamaru then sent his troops to sweep out the rest of the city. Why did he send them to their doom? He knew that they weren't a match for our defenses. What did he hope to accomplish with them? Pondered Tenten while thinking of ways to mutilate Alikard. Shikamaru provided her the answer. He probably thought that we couldn't fight against our own men. It would also demoralize our own forces. Or I just didn't care what would happen to them. Came out of an alley. The ninja turned their head towards the alley. In that alley appeared two blood-red eyes. Alikard then stepped out of the alley, showing himself to the ninja. Shikamaru stepped forward and addressed the ancient vampire. Who are you and what do you hope to gain by this? Alikard just placed an amusing smirk. I'm Alikard and I'm going to liberate Wave. Your chances are quite low. You're seriously outnumbered. Alikard just continued smirking. This surprised most shinobi, but angered Tenten. Why are you smirking? You blood-sucking bastard. I'm just pleased that's all. I'm going to have a great fight, so come, attack me. Shikamaru just sighed. How troublesome. Go. With that several shinobi came out of the buildings on the street they threw together with the other 15 shinobi, kunai and Alikard. Most of them missed him, the rest he dodged. The entire area around Alikard was filled with kunai. All the kunais suddenly started fizzling, revealing that they all had explosive tags. Alikard jumped into the air evading the explosion. Out of the dust cloud of the massive exploding came two dragons made of smoke spiraling each other. Out of the smoke came two unfolded scrolls still spinning in the air. Tenten was in the middle. Twin rising dragon. She then began to unseal weapons from kunai to swords, out of her scrolls and threw them at Alikard. He responded by drawing his jackal and castle and shot each weapon, making them useless. Tenten then fell on the ground, followed by Alikard. Alikard was about to aim at Tenten but he was held back by something. He looked at the ground and saw a shadow connecting to his shadow. He then realized that was caught by Shikamaru's shadow mimic technique. The dust then cleared showing Shikamaru holding his hands in the rat sign. Shadow mimic. Success. Neji now. Neji then charged Alikard. 8 trigrams. Vacuum palm. He then Alikard with a palm strike blasting him toward Lee who was waiting for him. Lee then started a combo of punches and kicks, ending with an upwards kick sending Alikard in the air. Lee then disappeared for a moment before reappearing behind Alikard. Leaf shadow dance. The bandages around Lee's arms started to unravel, mummifying Alikard. Lee then grabbed the mummified Alikard and started a nosedive towards the ground while spiraling. Primary Lotus. Just before Lee was about to crash he ejected leaving Alikard to crash on the ground, leaving a dust cloud. Tenten then followed up by jumping in the air and when she was above the dust cloud she opened a sealing scroll. Out of it came a dozen of weapons flying at the dust cloud. The shinobi then cheered, the commanders relieved, but was stopped by a voice from the dust cloud. That was a very good try, but it will take then a few punches and weapon to kill me. Out of the dust cloud shone 2 red eyes. When the dust cloud was gone they saw Alikard standing but with several weapons sticking inside his body. One of the weapons sliced his left cheek open revealing his sharp teeth to the world. The weapons were slowly pushed back out of his body, his cheek was also being repaired. Alikard then started shooting shinobi. Most shinobi were shaking in fear of the display, they were blown to pieces by Alikard. The more experienced shinobi barely dodged the bullets but second one then followed killing them. The commanders just looked at the massacre in fear, none of their man was spared. Shikamaru was the first to snap out of it. Neji, Tenten, Lee keep him busy, I need some time to think up a plan. Shikamaru started his thinking pose. Team 9 snapped out of their stupor and then prepared their next techniques. Tenten lobbed a giant scroll over Alikard. The scroll started to shoot weapons at Alikard with such speed that they became white streaks. Weapon control. Heavenly metal disaster. Alikard just responded by aiming his guns up to the sky and started shooting. Most of the weapons are hit but some slipped through, hitting Alikard in his arms and shoulders. Alikard ignored it and continued shooting. When the barrage ended, he aimed his weapons at Tenten and started shooting. Neji quickly stepped in front of her and started spinning. 8 trigrams. Rotation. A dome of chakra appeared, stopping the bullets from hitting Tenten. Lee had opened 3 of his inner gates. He then charged Alikard. Alikard shot at him with his jackal, but Lee just dodged. Alikard smiled wickedly, before he got a kick in the face, sending him upwards. Alikard then got thrown around like a rag doll through a frenzy of punches. Lee then prepared to punch him downwards. 4th gate. Open. He then disappeared for a moment and punched him downwards. Alikard shot like a rocket towards the ground, but he was pulled up by a bandage attached by Lee, who prepared for a simultaneous kick and palm strike. 5th gate. Open. Reverse lotus. Alikard then was hit by the attack and was smashed in the ground. Team 9 waited anxious for the dust to disappear. When it did, it showed Alikard seemingly unharmed. He then shot at Lee this time, but Neji intervened with rotation again. "What is that weapon, Tenten?" asked Lee, who was recuperating from the usage of the gates. "I don't know, Lee, I haven't seen anything like it. It's a mini kunai launcher, it throws piece of metal at high speed," said Neji. Tenten then asked, "Do you see any weaknesses?" "Nothing, I can't think, we just have to wait till he runs out," responded Neji. He took out a kunai and was about to charge, but Shikamaru stopped him by placing his hand on his shoulder. "Neji, stop it, I will take over, take a break you 3. "Shikamaru, are you insane? We couldn't beat him with us 3 together and you will be fighting him alone. Do you have dead wish?" shouted out Tenten. "Tenten is right, Shikamaru-san, we will have to combine our youthfulness," added Lee. "For an army to function properly, they need a commander, but the soldiers will have to listen to the commander to make him useful," responded Shikamaru. Neji then sheathed his kunai and took a few steps back. Tenten then called out to him, "Neji, what are you doing? Fate has deemed him to win?" Tenten was about to retort, but she didn't and took a few steps back. Lee then followed by Lee. Shikamaru then walked up to Alikard, who was waiting for him. "So the commander goes to battle, this will be interesting." Alikard was smiling insanely. Shikamaru was focused. The two didn't move for minutes, their hair waving in the wind. Alikard then suddenly jumped backwards. Just in time, because a tendril made of shadow erupted from the ground. Alikard in midair aimed his castle and shot at the Chunin, who rolled away just in time. It revealed a small holes in the streets where his feet were. Alikard then was forced to dodge several tendrils appearing from the streets. After a while the tendrils stopped appearing, suddenly Shikamaru appeared. He then slashed with his tanto. Alikard blocked with his castle. When Shikamaru jumped away, he discovered his ploy and looked at the ground. He sees his shadow connected to that of Shikamaru's. "Shadow mimic technique. Success," said Shikamaru in a serious voice. Alikard just smirked. "Using that entire show just to distract me, impressive, but what will you do now you got me?" "This." He then placed his arm in a way that would allow Alikard to shoot himself. Alikard just continued smirking, clearly amused. "Oh, so that's your plan, forcing me to shoot myself? How do you know it will work? When you were fighting Team 9, I was analyzing every of your movements. But it was when Neji blocked your weapon, I managed to find one of the weapons you threw at them. It was made of silver, but why would you use something that valuable to throw? So I came up with a theory, you use silver in case you would come across something like yourself," explained Shikamaru. "And what if you're wrong?" asked Alikard with a grin full of insanity. "Then I have blown up your head, I doubt you would survive that." With that, Shikamaru forced Alikard to pull the trigger. He expected a shower of blood, but instead a cloud of dust came from the building nearby. When Shikamaru looked better, he saw that Alikard had moved his head forward. "How?" Alikard just smiled insanely. "Your foolish shadow just couldn't hold me, but nice try." He then shot with his jackal. The bullets were then stopped by a blade. The blade was a broadsword in the form oversized butcher knife with a hole at the top and a half one at the bottom. It was Kabikirabocho. The blade was beginning to crack due to the force of the bullets. The sword was held by Tenten. When Alikard saw Kabikirabocho, his mood dropped immediately. "That sword doesn't belong to you," said Alikard, his discontentment audible. "I found it, so it's mine. It's not my fault no one bothered to take it," answered Tenten. "The sword of a man shouldn't be in the hands of a dog." "Shut up, I'm worthy of this blade," she said with a bit of fury by being compared to a dog. "Then prove it, repair the blade right now," commanded the vampire in a stern voice. Tenten was startled by it. "But I don't have the tools right now." She then got a punch in the stomach so fast that she couldn't react to it. She lost her grip on the sword because the shock. Tenten was blown several feet away. The punch broke several of her ribs, the pain immobilizing her for a few moments. Alikard picked up Kabikirabocho and placed it in a puddle of blood, made by a dead shinobi. "You fool, this sword doesn't repair by normal means, you have to feed it." The blood in the puddle started to disappear. The cracks in the sword started to repair. Tenten looked in awe as the sword regained its former glory. Alikard to the downed Tenten. "You're clearly not worthy of this sword, you couldn't hear its cries for blood." Alikard raised his arm. "Now time to die." With that he started to swing downwards. Clang! The Kabikirabocho was then blocked by 10 kunai. The kunai were in the hands of 10 Chunin. Lee, who has recovered from using the gates, then picked up Tenten. Just in time because the kunai started to crack under the force of Kabikirabocho. The Chunin then jumped away, leaving the sword to crash into the street. One of the Chunin addressed Team 9 and Shikamaru. "We have dispatched the infected men. Commanders, retreat now." The commanders were startled by this, especially Shikamaru. "What? How can you ask this of us? We're the commanders of this squad. Someone has to report back to Konoha. You four are the only who have the full information of the enemy, while we have nothing. You're more valuable." The 4 shinobi had a hard time understanding, but in the end they took off, Tenten on Lee's back. Alikard then addressed the shinobi. "You do realize that you're going to die?" "Yes, but we will do so battling," responded one of the Chunin. Alikard just smiled a creepy smile. "Well said, dog." With that he charged the shinobi. The commanders of the wave invasion force were running back to Konoha. They've reached the bridge. When they were halfway they heard the sound of screaming. When they turned around they saw a scene that haunt them forever. The 10 Chunin that were supposed to cover them, were falling from the sky, kicking and screaming as they fall. Each of the Chunin hit a flagpole on the bridge, impaling them. Some of the Chunin were still alive, prolonging their agony. Tenten was the first to react. "How horrible, does his cruelty have no limits?" Shikamaru then said. "We will have revenge, I will make sure of it, but we will have to retreat for now." With that they left, ending Konoha's invasion of Wave. Alikard stood in front of the city hall that held the citizens of Wave. But before he could open the door, it was pushed open. It was only a chink, but Alikard could see the many people that were trying to look through it. When they saw Alikard, who had put on his hat and glasses, they wanted to shut the door and hide. They were about to do that, but they were stopped by a loud voice. "You fools, what are you doing? That man saved us from those Konoha ninja, and this how you would thank him?" The crowd were ashamed by their own behavior through the man's words. When Alikard looked at the stranger, he recognized him immediately. It was Tazuna. He hadn't changed much. Tazuna then looked at him. "Hello, my name is Tazuna and I'm the major of this city. And in the name of the city I want to thank you." Tazuna then waited for a name which Alikard gave. "Alikard. Alikard-san, if there is anything we can do for you, just call us. A place to live in here would be nice, permanently I mean." The people of Wave were be taken by the simplicity by the request. Most of the people would demand lots of money, power and or a monument dedicated to them, not just a roof above their head. "That can be arranged, but it will take a bit of time, so for the meantime you can stay in my place. My daughter Tsunami will lead you there." Tsunami then came up to him, together with Inari. She hasn't changed much as well. Inari on the other hand has grown well. He became a bit taller and let grow out his spiky black hair. He wore a gray, sleeveless, V-neck shirt together with black pants. Though people would miss it, Alikard saw that Inari had trained himself for combat. His walk and muscle showed it clearly. "Please, follow me, Alikard-san, Inari, come here." With that they were off. While they were off, the people gathered around Tazuna, who then addressed the people of his city. "Listen up, people. The battle with the ninja of Konoha destroyed a big part of our city. But if we work together we can repair it. But that's not the only issue. Our daimyo and his family has been killed by Konoha shinobi and was about to replaced. We do need to replace him and I ain't go doing it. So who will you choose?" The people of Wave didn't know someone who could be fitting for the role of daimyo. They needed an assertive person who radiated authority, but while they made good process, most of them were still a bit meek because of Gato. The others were merchants and couldn't rule even if it was to save their life. Then one of the citizens came up with a notion. "What of the one that saved us, Alikard?" This caused an uproar of reactions. "What, but he just came up here, isn't that a bit too early? He did save us, so I wouldn't mind. Well, we got no one better to do it, so why not? I doubt he knows about our values and such." Tazuna was a bit annoyed with the noise. Silence. "Look people, I do not mind him as our daimyo and we have no one better choice, but to those who aren't sure I will become his advisor for the first years to make sure our tradition and values are known. How about it?" The people were now a bit reassured that Tazuna was going to be advisor, so they agreed. Tazuna was sure relieved that they now have a daimyo and that he wasn't the one. "So it's agreed, then we will ask Alikard to become our daimyo." A bit away were Alikard, Tsunami and Inari were walking. Inari was excitingly talking to Alikard. Alikard was zoning them out in favor of thinking his next step. He was taking a big risk by not taking control of Wave, but he knew that in order to win this battle he had to play his cards at the right time. If he would take forcibly control of Wave, he would only gain hostility. But if he could gain control through approval, he would win a base of operation, a source of income and the favor of other nations. He was shot out of his musing by Tsunami. "Alikard-san, we have arrived at the house." He looked at the house. He noticed that it was at a different location than the previous one. It was one of the bigger buildings of the city. He then walked inside. To his surprise, the inside wasn't much different from the past. It was simple and practical, but it still had a warm feeling. Tsunami then asked him, "Would you like sleep? You must be tired." Alikard didn't mind taking a nap. He had stuffed himself and he didn't have anything better to do. "I wouldn't mind." She then guided him towards the guest room. It was a simple room. It had a bed, a dresser and a desk with a chair. It also had a window that gave a splendid view of the city, especially at night. Alikard took off his hat and glasses, placed them on the dresser. He then looked at the bed. "It's been such a long time since I've slept on a bed." Tsunami then asked, "What did you sleep in?" Alikard was not sure to answer the question, but in the end he did. "A coffin." Tsunami was clearly shocked by that odd piece of information, but then she thought a bit more clearly about it. "Well, they do look comfortable. The only problem would be if there was a corpse inside it." "Was it inhabited?" "No, it is mine and mine alone. It is my most prized possession." Tsunami was a bit more reassured, but she still found the thought a bit morbid. "Call me if you need me, I will probably be downstairs." With that she left. He was about to place himself on the bed, but then he noticed he was still carrying Kabikirabocho. He took it off his back and placed in corner. "I will bring it back tomorrow." Alikard then placed himself on the bed. It was just long enough for his length. Alikard fell asleep soon afterwards. In several of the Akatsuki hideout were the members of said communicating through the projection communicating system. "Zetsu, report. What's so important that you called us together?" asked the ring-eyed leader, Pain. "Yeah, I was busy with my prayers for Lord Jashin," complained the silver-haired, scythe-wielding man. "It's Wave, it was being conquered by..." But Kakuzu interrupted him before he could continue. "Konoha, yes we know, what a bother, I could be hunting bounties and earning money now." Conan then said, "Let him continue, he wouldn't comment him for such trivial thing." They did for a moment, but it was then conquered again, but this time by Alikard. The members of Akatsuki were quite surprised. Even they had to recover after fighting two S-ranked ninjas, but he immediately went to Wave at high speed and slaughtered them. "How many men did Konoha have there and of what level?" asked Itachi to Zetsu. "A small 100 of Chunin level." "Does that Alikard even sleep? Even Toby, who is a big boy, needs sleep," commented the spiral-masked man. Kisame just spotted a grin. "I would love to battle him, it would be such a fun fight." "Watch out, Kisame. From what we know, he's your worst choice. He likes to attack from distance, but he doesn't use chakra." commented Itachi. Did you observe some new information about him? Asked the leader. No, I couldn't come to close, otherwise would I be found. Pain then processed the information and relayed his orders. Okay. The plan remains the same, Kakuzu and Hidan go after the Nibi while Kisame and Tobi will hunt the Sanbi. Meanwhile Itachi will try to salvage Sasori's spy network. Tobi, follow me. With that Kisame left the projection communication system. Tobi is a good boy. Though that Alikard can throw a wrench in my plans, I will have to watch out for him. Tobi left the projection communication system and the others followed as well. While the members of Akatsuki were discussing their plans, Tazuna was walking towards Alikard. When he was at the door of the guest room, he knocked but no sound came from the room. He opened the door and saw Alikard sleeping on the bed. It was quite a surprising thing. He had seen what Alikard did and while he did resent it, he knew that it was necessary, though he could have shown less cruelty. While Tazuna was reliving the scenes he had to visit as Major, Tsunami passed by him. Oh, he fell immediately asleep when he placed himself, though he first looked irritated, but when I closed the curtains he slept a lot better. Tazuna then looked at the sleeping, he looked quite peaceful. It seems he was dreaming. Tazuna then shrugged and went down to wait and drink some sake. Alucard's dream world. Alucard was standing inside a dream world again. He immediately took out his jackal to shoot whatever idiot that would come. You Gaki are the most crazy person I ever met. Alucard was certainly surprised to hear that voice, so surprised that he didn't shoot. He turned around and came face to face with the demon of the mist. He hasn't changed a bit since they met. Alucard was a bit taller than him. Zabuza, give me one reason why I shouldn't you and get out of this dream. Because I'm not a fabrication of your fantasy, but I'm the soul that's stored inside Kabikirabocho. I see, so the sword is even more like than I thought. Stated Alucard. You could say that. Zabuza was then forced to dodge several bullets courtesy of Alucard. Hey, Gaki, what are you doing? Said Zabuza angrily while still dodging and blocking bullets. You clearly are a dream, the real you wouldn't know. Quote, you are wrong. You see, when someone wants to wield Kabikirabocho, it takes a bit of blood, and through it, the previous wielder that's stored inside it can judge the person. Alucard then stopped shooting to Zabuza's relief. I see. Zabuza was quite pissed. Gaki, you just have been trying to kill me and you won't even apologize? Alucard just smirked. That's right. A silence ensued between the two warriors. Suddenly Zabuza started laughing. Yes, that's the spirit. It's exactly what I want to see in the next owner of Kabikirabocho. Thank you, Zabuza. By the way, why did you reject or accept Tenten? You mean the one took the sword from? The sword wasn't fed enough to start the ritual. About those memories. Why did you had to have so many of them? Do you know how long I have been watching them? I had to watch every fucking one of your memories plus all the MEORIES you ever received. 300 million years. Every other swordsman had only watched TWINTY years at most, but no, I've had the one with 300 million years. I thought I went to hell. He was taken out of his ranting by Alikard, who shot at him. Is that all? Yes, make sure to be a worthy owner of Kabikirabocho. Alikard then left the dream world. In Konohagakure stood the members of Team 7 before their Hokage, Senju Tsunade. Kakashi was the first one to speak. Team 7, coming back from a successful S-rank mission. Tsunade remained impassive. Report. When we arrived in Suna, we found our contractor Tamari, who was talking with a man who we later identified as Alikard. They were talking about Gaara's kidnapping and the Akatsuki. We then decided to make contact with the client. After that, a Suna nin came with the cage's gourd. His gourd? Why would they bring that? Asked the 5th Hokage curiously. Kakashi just continued. Alikard took a sniff from the gourd. He commented the smell in a positive way, and after that he disappeared in a colony of bats. That piece disturbed Tsunade. It reminded her of Itachi and his crow genjutsu. Was it a shunsen or genjutsu? We aren't sure, we couldn't sense any chakra. Continue. After that, Tamari guided us to his brother. He apparently had fight one of the nins that captured the cage. In the end he had lost and was brought back, where he was diagnosed that he was severely poisoned. Sakura healed him with the use of the greenhouse of Suna. Kankuro though revealed that he had caught a piece of cloth from his opponent, who was none other than Sasori of the Red Sands. I used my nin dog to find the cage. Several shinobi of Suna followed us. Tamari and Lady Chio were among them. When Tsunade heard that name she had a nostalgic look on her face. So that hag is still alive? She always had such nasty poisons but I always found a cure. What happened afterwards? Kakashi then rubbed sheepishly the back of his neck alarming Tsunade. Well, we found Gaara together with Alikard walking towards us. When Tsunade heard that piece of information she had a look of disbelief. What? So you're telling that this Alikard guy found the case cage through his gourd, infiltrated their base, saved the case cage and killed the 2 Akatsuki members all on his own? Kakashi just said. Yes, that would be correct. Tsunade then took out a bottle sake and started drinking. So tell me about this Alikard. Kakashi then started his description. He's a tall, blank man with short black hair. His teeth are like those in Kiri while he claims that he's not coming from there. He's a strange clothing style which I never seen. He wore a blood-red overcoat that reached his ankles together with a hat in the same color. He wore some strange jacket and pants in charcoal color. He wore charcoal pants and black boots. To finish his looks he wore white gloves, glowing orange glasses and blood-red ribbon around his neck. When she heard the description of Alikard, she was quite surprised that they haven't heard of him. She would let Jiraiya get some information on him. That man would be easy recognize. But if you didn't, then how are you late? We were ambushed by a group of Iwa missing nin. We were ambushed but in the end we defeated them. We have their heads in a scroll. We had to rest afterwards. He then threw the scroll towards her. She just caught the scroll and put it away for later. That would be all, dismissed. But before Team 7-7 could leave they were interrupted by Team 9 and Shikamaru storming through the door. They were clearly exhausted and looked like the devil was on their tail. Tenten was the first to say something. Hokage-sama, we have bad news. Tsunade was clearly surprised to see them here. They were supposed to be gone for at least another 2 weeks. Shikamaru, what are you doing here? She said, surprised. Shikamaru then took word. We've lost Wave. What are you telling me? You said you had it. We did, but we were defeated afterwards by a man named Alikard. When Tsunade and Team 7 were having a mini-stroke when they heard the name Alikard. Did you just say Alikard? Yes, do you know him? Asked Tenten. No, but he interfered in a mission of us. It seems that we have to inform the council and clan heads of this revelation. Anbu, go get the clan heads and the council members for a meeting and you 9 will come with me. With she got from her chair and went to the council room, the others following her. Alikard just woke from his strange dream. He noticed that the curtains were closed. Strange, I thought that they were open. He looked at Kabikirabocho and picked it up. He noticed that a bit of his blood was stored in the handle. He then assumed that his dream was not a fabrication of his imagination. He put on his glasses and hat and went downstairs where he was greeted by Tsunami. Alikard-san, just in time, dinner is ready. Dad is already at the table. I will get Inari. Alikard then walked up to the table and placed himself on the seat in front of Tazuna. Inari then entered followed by Tsunami. Inari then took place next to Alikard. Tsunami then went to the kitchen and came back with a pot. If Alikard had been alive he would drool by the smell of cooked food, but now it meant nothing. She then gave everyone 1 plate. The 3 then placed their hand in a prayer. Alikard followed as well. Itadakimasu. The 3 humans started to eat. Alikard just looked at his food. It was ramen. When he was Naruto, he would go on a frenzy, but since he was a vampire he couldn't eat it anymore. Not only would he throw it up, it also tasted like shit. Tsunami saw that Alikard wasn't eating. Alikard-san, is something wrong? We have something else if you don't like it. Tazuna and Inari looked at Alikard. Alikard knew it was going bad, but he couldn't let the people of Wave that he drinks human blood. His chances to become ruler of Wave would become 0. No, there is no problem, it looks great. He took his chopsticks and took a bit of the ramen and placed inside his mouth and started chewing on it. It tasted terrible, but he just continued chewing. Meanwhile he started transforming his stomach and intestines into Baskerville, puppy version. He then swallowed. Normally the food would stop there and he would throw it up, but through his mastery of his vampire powers he could swallow it without a problem. After the food left his gullet, it fell in Baskerville's mouth, who started eating it. Grandpa, how are the repairs going on? Tazuna looked to his daughter and said, it is most clean up. We have to remake 1 street, but if we work hard enough we will be done in a few days. We also restored our bridge in its old glory. He decided to leave the gory parts out of it, they didn't need to know. Good, Alikard-san, where do you come from? Alikard was happy with the interruption by Tsunami. It gave him a reason to stop eating the disgusting food. I come from an island far away, named Great Britain. I haven't heard about it. How is it there? Asked Tazuna. Alikard thought a bit about it and said, it is nice. Then why did you came here? Asked Tsunami. A promise that I have yet to fulfill. What did you promise? Asked Inari in excitement, thinking about all the cool things it could be. When Alikard remained silent, he knew it wasn't a happy thought. It is okay, you don't have to tell. Reassured Tsunami. The rest of the dinner was continued in silence. Alikard just ate one bowl. When he was done, he placed down his chopsticks, signaling that he was done. Thank you, Baskerville, he said to Baskerville. Baskerville barked silently in return. Alikard then dismissed his hellhound. Tsunami then took the dishes and went to the kitchen and came back with dessert. Anyone dessert? It is dango. No, thank you. I've had enough, said Alikard in a polite tone. Are you sure? You haven't eaten much tonight? Asked Tsunami with concern. Yes. Okay, about you too? Yes, said Inari and Tazuna together. With that they received 2 plates with dango and they each took one. Tazuna then decided that now was the right time. Alikard-san, our daimyo was killed by the Konoha since he refused to give in with Konoha's demands. We've sought for a replacement and we hoped that you would be that person. Tsunami weren't surprised since they were informed beforehand, but their gazes were aimed at Alikard. Alikard was clearly surprised by this revelation. He thought that it would take a while to take over Wave. Why did they chose me? I just came here. Tazuna wasn't surprised by the question, it was quite normal. We aren't leaders, most of us are merchants or workers. We also decided that I would be your advisor so that our value and customs are known. So what do you say, are you going to be our daimyo? One condition. I will be addressed as Count, said the ancient vampire. Inari then asked, why, Count? It is hard to explain, but I took a liking to it. I guess that's acceptable, but I need to know your last name, Alikard-san, said Tazuna. The new daimyo of Wave then said, it's Chitsuki. My name is Alikard Chitsuki. The rest of the night was filled with informing Alikard of his duties as Count by the members of the household. In a small room were all the clan heads, Hamaru, Kaharu and Danzo, waiting for their Hokage, who came in together: Team 7, Team 9 and Shikamaru. Why are we called here, Hokage-sama? It's already evening, and why are those shinobi here? Asked Hamaru. The other members of the council asked similar questions. In the end it just got Tsunade angry. Silence. Now I have called a meeting because we have very disturbing news. It first started with our mission to save the case cage from the Akatsuki. We sent out Team 7 to the mission, but before they could even reach the base, he was already saved by a man called Alikard. What of it? They're S-rank nen, it doesn't that they are unbeatable. It just is very unlikely, said Hamaru, but he was interrupted by Shikaku Nara, head of the Nara clan. It's disturbing because I haven't heard of him and I check the bingo book every time a new one is released. It is my job as commander to be up to date with these type things, how troublesome they may be. But for someone to beat a S-class nen before he even came in the bingo book is unheard of, troublesome. This made everyone alert. What he did was indeed unheard of. He came out of nowhere and could battle with S-class nen. Tsunade was the first to recover. I see, continue. Alikard then followed us back to Sanagakure. We tried to get some information out of him, but he didn't drop anything, said Kakashi. He then went to Wave and conquered, hence why Neji, Tenten, Lee and Shikamaru are here, they're the only survivors. Added Tsunade. But we sent 90 men to there, all Chunin level, and he defeated them all, while he saved the case cage a few days prior. What is he? Danzo slammed his cane on the ground, gaining everyone's attention. He is a threat to our village, he should be put down, it's as simple as that. We don't know what he can, but maybe could the two teams tell us what they know, starting with Team 7? Said Shuza, trying to calm down the moods. We don't know much about him. We know that he has a sense of smell that surpasses the Inuzuka. Said Sakura. What? Our clan members have the best smell of the whole elemental nations. Protested Sume Inuzuka, head of the dog tamers. He could track the case cage through his gourd. Said Sai. That gourd is filled with the blood of his victims. Even you can't track a person with that much different scents mixed in it. Said Kakashi. Sume was silent. They were right, she couldn't that. The only other skill that he showed was that he could do a bat shunsen or he used a genjutsu. This piece of information surprised the survivors of Wave. What? That is impossible, exclaimed Tenten. What do you mean? Asked Inoichi, the Mindwalker. That man has no chakra, said Neji without emotion in his voice. This piece surprised all the older shinobi. What do you mean no chakra? That is impossible, stated Sakura. Neji just retorted. I saw it with my Byakugan, that man has not a single drop of chakra. Then how did he fight? Are we even talking about the same man? Asked Kakshi. He was a black-haired man with sharp teeth. He wore a red overcoat and black combat boots. Underneath he wore a strange gray-colored outfit. Is that your man? Asked Neji. Yes. So it is the same man, now tell us. How did he invade Wave? Commander, give your report, demanded Tsunade. Begin. Summary of Battle of Wave. We first noticed a call of a squad patrolling. One of the members called was clearly distressed. He informed that he was alone and a monster, and after that he died by that man. Neji used his Byakugan and we then noticed that that man used our own men against us. What do you mean, use our own man against us? Asked Hiyashi Hyuga. He used something, a virus that infects people and makes them in his obedient slaves. In exchange they lose most of their abilities and intelligence. The virus intransmittable from him to the shinobi and from the zombies themselves. I decided to send to the men at edge at the zombies who were trying to box us in. The others were ordered to retreat so we could ambush him. He reached another squad before they could reach the ambush site. The first of the squad drew his katana and charged him. Alikard caught his sword in mid-swing and killed the man. 2 people of the squad sent a jutsu at him, but he overcame them. He then bit down on the last one his neck and swinged him like a club, hitting the other 2. He then killed another squad member. Alikard slowly walked up to the last member who was a female. He lifted her by the neck and Sume then interrupted. We know what happened, just skip it. Shikamaru then continued. He licked a bit of her blood and determined that she was a virgin. He then impaled her with his hand, hitting her lung. He dropped her on the ground and stated, licking the blood that was on the ground. She wasn't dead yet, but not for long. The shinobi, especially the women, looked in disbelief at Shikamaru. Did you just say licked the blood? Is that a new code or something? Asked Kaharu at Shikamaru. No, he literally licked her blood, said Neji. Shikamaru continued. He then went to our location, we then executed our plan. Most of the shinobi threw kunai with exploding tags at and around him, forcing him to jump in the air. Tenten then threw a series of weapons at him. He drew his own weapons. It were 2 mini kunai launches. His accuracy made sure that not a single of her weapons slipped through. When he hit the ground, I caught him with my shadow mimic jutsu. Alikard then was hit by vacuum palm of Neji. He was launched towards Lee, who did a taijutsu combo ending with a primary lotus. The ambush was ended by Tenten, who sent a barrage of weapons at him. Unfortunately, he survived the barrage. It was then that he showed an incredible healing factor. It pushed the weapons out of his body with no wounds afterwards. He then started tearing our men to pieces. Tenten and Lee each tried their best attack on him, with no result. I then came up with a plan. By using a combination of my shadow jutsu, I managed to catch him. I forced him to hit himself with his own weapon. He then showed that he could break my shadow mimic jutsu by physical strength alone. He then threw 2 mini kunai with his weapon. Tenten managed to block it with Kabikira Bocho. When he saw the weapon, he wasn't pleased. He claimed that she wasn't worthy of the blade. He proved by asking to repair the blade that was cracked by his weapons. She couldn't. He then punched her with an incredible speed, forcing her to drop the blade. He picked it up and slashed downwards. Luckily, it was by the 10 shinobi that were eradicating the zombies. They implored to return to Konoha so that we could report this. We agreed and retreated, but when we were at the bridge, we heard screaming. It were the 10 Chunin falling from the air. They were all alive when they were falling. They all landed on a flagpole on the bridge, impaling the poor men. Some even were still alive. Quote, end. All the people except Team 9 and Danzo looked at Shikamaru in shock. That man is ruthless. He slaughtered their man. He didn't take any prisoners. He didn't show any mercy. In fact, he seems to play with his opponents to prolong their suffering. He was a true monster. Danzo admired the man. He was everything a shinobi should be. He would be a great ally, but too bad that they are opponents. He will die now for the good of Konoha. Is that your report? asked Tsunade. She then addressed Team 9. Do you have anything to add? Neji then spoke. Yes, he had blood-red eyes that glowed. With that the entire council started talking among each other. It could be an experiment of Orochimaru and the strange weapons also point in his direction. Said Hamaru. It also could be a scheme of Akatsuki. Kisame has superhuman strength. Knows about the blades of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, and Itachi could back him up with a powerful genjutsu and some kunai. Suggested Inoichi. But the last member of the Ino Shika Cho addressed his son. Son, why did you force him to hit himself with his own weapon? There were far more better options. He shot mini kunai made of silver. I thought that he used them in case he faces something like himself. Shikaku looked thoughtful for a moment. I see. This points even more at Orochimaru. Commented Sume. It isn't Orochimaru, it also isn't Akatsuki. Said a voice out of the corner of the room. It was the Jiraiya, their spy master. Jiraiya, what brings you here and how long have you been here? Asked Tsunade. Not long. I heard of Wave. I also found out that the people of Wave want him as their daimyo. Understandable, but why can't it be Orochimaru or Akatsuki? Said Kaharu. Jiraiya explained this to the council. Orochimaru wouldn't dare to attack Akatsuki directly, besides he would wait for us to exhaust ourselves and then he would strike. It can't be Akatsuki because Itachi and Kisame are each spotted far away from here. I see, so Alikard is a new threat. I suppose we place him in the bingo book as AS rank ninja. But what should we call him? It should place him in a bad light. Concluded Tsunade. What about Alikard, the blood drinker? Said Inoichi. No, I thought of Alikard the Crimson Menace. Commented Shuza. I thought about the Impaler of Wave. When Sume suggested the name everyone found it appropriate. That one will do, so we will place him in the bingo book as the Impaler of Wave. Alikard was now in the land of water walking towards Kiri. After his coronation, he appointed Tazuna as his replacement, should he be absent from his duties. Tazuna was about to refuse, but Alikard reminded him that he shouldn't deny his count. The second thing he did as count, was to send Gaara a mission request which entailed the protection of Wave. The eagle Alikard had sent, returned 2 days later with an offer from Gaara. Gaara was even nice him enough to send him a blood pack or two. Alikard looked at the offer and inspected it, he then sent an affirmative message back. 5 days later were 100 shinobi ranking off Junin and Chunin rank guarding Wave. He also sent a letter to Mifune, leader of Iron Country where Wave hired the samurai, demanding not only a refund but also the payment for the contract with Sanagakure for as long the contract between Iron Country and Wave would have lasted. His reasoning was that since that they not only failed in their contract to protect Wave, they also were obliged to fulfill the rest of the contract. He also mentioned that he and his people would have understood if his samurai were overpowered by superior force but they just betrayed Wave. Mifune responded that he understood the situation and that he would comply with both demands since they were reasonable. The money gained by this political move was used to pay for the repairs of Wave, including the cleanup of the palace of the daimyo, though Alikard decided to modify the palace a bit. He used some memories from his familiars and designed a dungeon underneath his palace. The dungeon connects to his room by a trapdoor. During that time he received a notification from Tazuna. Flashback. 10 days after the invasion. Alikard sat at a desk in his office study. It was a simple design. It had a desk, a few bookcases and chairs. The room also had a window that gave you a magnificent view of the sea. He was looking through different types of chakra restraining systems. The ones in Snow Country looked promising but he had experience with them. You could break with enough willpower, but it could be also because of the Kyuubi. The others were extremely pricey or didn't fit his wishes, like those chakra-absorbing plants. He was then erupted out his free time planning by Tazuna who was waiting at the door. My lord, can I come in? Yes, you can. Tazuna slid the door open and entered. Count, I have found something that would you be interested in. Alikard didn't even look up when he said. Continue. 2 weeks ago, the Chunin exams were started in Kiri. I see, but that is not the only thing, is it? No, every major hidden country has their most promising genin in the finals. Now every cage will come at those exams. This has never happened before. Kiri then has invited every daimyo and major clan for the Chunin exams and even organized a dancing event in the evening. It seems that our daimyo had accepted the invitation. He also arranged most of the journey. Alikard then stood up and looked and walked towards and gazed at the sea. So Kiri has made a major gamble. They are really desperate to prove that they are still a major nation after their civil war. To Suna, I will go to the exams. I want you to prepare my journey. Of course, my lord. Tazuna then left his study. End flashback. He then ended up on a boat towards water country. It was a boring and uneventful trip except the suicide case. A man slit his throat and fell of the boat. The man wrote even a letter saying that he couldn't live on and apologized to his family. When he arrived at the port, he took off towards Kiri, which he's doing now. While it was misty, he could still navigate through the swamps that were common for water country, well due to his vampire senses. He was making good progress until he was attacked by a large snake. Alikard just shot it with his castle. The snake disappeared with a poof. Alikard then jumped away, barely dodging a swing of a sword. Kukakuku, looks like you have some skill. You did defeat Sasori after all. In front of him stood the snake Sanin, Orochimaru, with the sword of Kusanagi in his hand. Alikard just remained impassive and took out Kabikirabocho and took a stance. His castle in his left hand and Kabikirabocho in his right. Oh, Kabikirabocho, the sword of Zabuza, the demon of the mist. I wonder how it will fare against my sword of Kusanagi. With that the two charged. Alikard went for a downward swing. Orochimaru blocked it with his Kusanagi's flat side. His modified body barely could handle the force Alikard applied to his blade combined with the weight of the iron broadsword. Alikard then pointed his castle at Orochimaru's head and shot. The Sanin dodged by moving his head and then jumped back. Alikard was about to shoot at him again, but he was forced to dodge an attack coming from the ground. When he looked at the ground he saw a hand. The hand retreated back into the ground and then out of it came a silver-haired shinobi with glasses. Orochimaru then addressed his subordinate. What took you so long, Kabuto? Kabuto just pushed his glasses up. You know how hard it is to do the hiding like a mole technique in this marsh? Orochimaru ignored his excuse and said, Kabuto, you will fight him. It is a good time to test your new modifications in a combat situation. Orochimaru, are you sure about that? He did defeat 2 members of Akatsuki on his own after all. The Sanin wasn't pleased with his refusal. Kabuto, do what I say. I didn't give those modifications to you, so you couldn't use them. With that Kabuto charged at Alikard, with cage-level speed. Alikard just swung Kabikirabocho in an horizontal arc. Kabuto ducked under it and slashed Alikard's side with a chakra scalpel. It hadn't much effect. Kabuto then turned around and tried to stab him with a curved kunai, but Alikard used the momentum of his swing to turn around and shot him in the head at point-blank range. Kabuto was sent backwards with blood flowing from his forehead. Alikard knew about Kabuto's regeneration and shot him 5 more times. Kabuto fell on the ground unmoving, satisfying Alikard. He then turned his attention to Orochimaru. You had a brave subordinate, thinking that he could defeat me by charging me without taking me off guard. He was a fool. Orochimaru just smirked cruelly. Are you sure about your past tense? Alikard then widened his eyes and turned around, but he's decapitated by a curved kunai courtesy of Kabuto. Alikard's headless body fell on the ground. His back pointed towards the ground. Kabuto just pushed his glasses back up. You were quite vicious on me? Hitting me with that strange weapon 6 times, but in the end it didn't matter. You died anyway. Orochimaru then said. Kabuto, take his weapons, I haven't seen anything like them. Kabuto crouched and was about to pick up Kabikirabocho, but then something that even surprised Orochimaru happened. Alikard's headless body started aiming the castle in his left hand at Kabuto's head and shot. Kabuto was sent flying. Alikard then stood up and regenerated his head. Orochimaru, who was fascinated with what was happening, looked at the place where his head was. It was dissolving into shadows. Alikard then sheathed his castle and charged Kabuto. He swung Kabikirabocho with both hands trying to bisect the medic. Kabuto then blocked it with his forearm. The blade still sliced through his flesh, but it was stopped at the bone. That was breaking, but that was also repairing at the same time. Alikard had the advantage until he was almost through his arm, but after that moment they were at a stalemate. Kabuto then pointed his hand at Alikard and bones shot out the tips of his fingers. Alikard was hit by the bony bullets. It didn't deter Alikard from drawing his jackal. He then shot at Kabuto's right hand. blowing it up, making blood spray everywhere. The owner of said appendage screamed in pain. Alikard then pulled his sword out of his opponent's arm and slashed at Kabuto's neck. Kabuto ducked, but he wasn't prepared for the jackal aimed at his left upper arm. Alikard smiled maniacally and shot his arm off. Kabuto then made a blade out of bone at his wrist. He knew that he couldn't beat Alikard, but he would die by one of the monster's hands either way. He charged Alikard desperately. Alikard waited till he was close and slashed Kabuto's last arm off from the shoulder. He then used his jackal and shot the medic's kneecaps, separating his legs from his body. Kabuto, lying in a puddle of his own blood, then looked at Alikard, his eyes only showing acceptance. Alikard had to give him. He was quite interesting but not as fascinating as Anderson. That man would still be fighting in this situation. Alikard just picked his opponent up with his two hands and bit down on his neck, draining his blood and gaining his memories. The memories would have made any lesser man mad, but it meant nothing to him. But then he got memories about the experiments on the Edo Tensei. They started something that never happened in history. Alikard the vampire became enraged. In the marshlands found in the country of water was Orochimaru almost salivating at the sight of the body of Alikard. Its properties were amazing. It could break the bones of a Kagaya who were nearly unbreakable. It could also recover from the most mortal wounds. Orochimaru would have almost thought that he was Jinchuriki if it weren't for the fact that every Biju except the Sanbi and the Kyuubi are sealed, and the other two are about to be reformed. He then looked how Alikard started to drink the blood of his subordinate Kabuto. He probably has to drink blood to sustain himself. It isn't even that much of a drawback. He then noticed that Alikard stopped moving, who suddenly began to talk. I have seen a baby being raped, a man being tortured for information he didn't have, an entire country being slaughtered, a man that impregnated women so he could eat the babies, a woman being sold for wine by his husband. The ones who commits these acts are monsters, but for you I haven't such title, but I have 9 words for you. The anger was clearly audible in his voice, but Alikard managed to rein it. It wasn't useful against someone of this level. That didn't mean that the memory stopped haunting him. Memory. Kabuto was clearly in dungeon. In it stood a line of people in chains. Next to Kabuto stood Orochimaru. At his other side stood a set scrolls and kunai with sealed tags, all for the Edo Tensei. Orochimaru then beckoned one of the chained of men. The man went in a container that could keep a Jinchuriki locked in. Kabuto then gave one of the scrolls and sealed tags to Orochimaru, who stood in front of the container. He opened the scroll, smeared a bit blood on it and placed it on the ground. Symbols then started to appear on the ground, surrounding the man. Orochimaru made a hand sign and paper came from the symbols, who started to glow. The paper started to cover the man completely and it then transformed in another man. He wore a sound shinobi outfit. His body was full of cracks. He then started looking around, a bit confused. Where am I? He then noticed Orochimaru. Orochimaru, did you save me? Where am I? Orochimaru ignored him and placed the kunai with the sealing tag inside his body. The revived man started to convulse. The body started to lose color and the cracks grew in number and size. What have you done to me? Please, stop it. Orochimaru-sama. Orochimaru just looked at his former subordinate without emotion. When the body of the man stopped transforming, he then signaled another of his men to seal away his test subject. The man, who was still screaming and convulsing, was being mummified. They then placed a seal on the mummy. They then dragged it away to a storage. Orochimaru then walked to Kabuto and said, "This tag is a failure. It just damages the soul and doesn't erase the personality of the soul." Kabuto noted it down, but was curious about something. Orochimaru, why didn't you just release the Edo Tensei? Orochimaru looked at his right hand and said, "It is a possibility that the sealed tag disturbed the Edo Tensei, and if my tag works I will never have to undo the Edo Tensei." Kabuto just nodded. Orochimaru then repeated the process. Each time they used the next person in line to revive the person that was sacrificed in the previous experiment. After they tested the next sealed tag, they sealed away the test subject and stored it. After all the experiments you could see nothing but mummified corpses in the storage. End. Alikard could never forgive Orochimaru. Not only did he disturb the dead's rest, he also had the gall to seal those souls without their senses for near eternity. He only managed to retain what little remained of his sanity thanks to his familiars, and that was just for 50 years. He still hates Arthur Helsing for that. When he would meet that man in hell, he will get a thorough torture session, Alucard style. He was thrown out of his violent thoughts by Orochimaru, who was mentally drooling on this body. Wonderful, this man can even steal memories from a person he drank blood from, this even better than the Sharingan. Oh, what are those 9 words? Alikard then placed his hands in front of his head in the form of a rectangle. Orochimaru could only see Alikard's gloves, the rest of his body was pitch black. A red glow appeared around Alikard. Release Control Art Restriction System, Levels 3, 2, 1. The glove's symbols gained a red glow. A red eye opened in the rectangle that was formed by Alikard's hands. Several other eyes opened on Alikard's body. Alikard then charged the Sannin with a speed that surprised Orochimaru. A hand then appeared out Orochimaru's chest, but Alikard wasn't fooled, he knew that this was a mud clone. He was proved right when Orochimaru dissolved into mud. He spun around and blocked a downward strike from Orochimaru with both his castle and jackal. Orochimaru just smirked, but it disappeared when an opened maw appeared of Alikard's stomach. Out of it shot Kabikirabocho, separating Orochimaru's upper and lower body. Alikard thought that it was over, but he was proved wrong when snakes slithered out of both parts of Orochimaru towards the other body part. The snakes pulled Orochimaru back together and the wound closed up effortlessly. Alikard, who had changed his clothing to his black straight jacket with matching pants and boots, growled and shot at Orochimaru with both his guns. Orochimaru displayed a great amount of agility and flexibility by dodging all Alikard's bullet and tried to punch Alikard. Alikard cocked his hand back and grew an enormous amount of muscle and punched Orochimaru's hand. It blew Orochimaru's arm away from his body. Orochimaru then jumped back. He stiffened for a moment and then opened his mouth, and out of it came Orochimaru with both arms restored. It seems that close range is not possible with this guy. But what a wonderful body, maybe it can hold my sage mode. He then placed at the ground and out of it came 1,000 snakes. They all charged Alikard and opened their mouths. Out of them came Kusanagi look-alike swords, making the snakes a wall of steel. Alikard Zhu transformed himself in a river of shadows and wriggled himself through the snakes. He then shredded all the snakes. He then gathered himself together and charged Orochimaru as a 2-headed wolf. Orochimaru then made a hand sign, and just when Alikard leapt Orochimaru, he blew a wind release. Great breakthrough at him. The 2-headed wolf then smashed against a 3. Bang! Orochimaru suddenly had a hole in his body where his heart should be. He looked slowly behind him and saw a puddle made of shadows and eyes that held the jackal. The 2-headed wolf disappeared and the puddle reformed into Alikard. Orochimaru, on the other hand, opened his mouth and shed his skin again. It seems that your effort are in vain. You can't kill me, I'm immortal. While on the inside he was thinking differently. His body shedding technique does use a lot of chakra and he has yet to hit Alikard. You fool, there is no such thing as immortality. Alikard took out Kabikirabocho and attached a tendril of shadow on it. He then started swing the blade in circles at high speed. He then flung the blade at Orochimaru. Orochimaru was forced to dodge the makeshift flail and threw several snakes at the vampire. Alikard pulled back Kabikirabocho and slashed the snakes with it. He then noticed that the Orochimaru that connected to the snakes was just a husk. A blade then erupted out of the ground, piercing Alikard through the stomach. The blade was followed by a snake and then Orochimaru. Alikard reduced to his body to centipedes and started to climb Kusanagi. Orochimaru then made hand signs. Lightning style. Electrifying current jutsu. Then an electric current came out of Orochimaru's mouth, using the snake and the extended Kusanagi as conductor, electrifying the centipedes. The centipedes fell of Kusanagi and became electrified puddles of shadows and eyes. The eyes clearly showed signs of pain. The puddles came together and reformed into Alikard, who was on one knee, clearly paralyzed by the lightning jutsu. Orochimaru then made the tiger seal, but he placed the middle fingers behind his index fingers. Orochimaru's neck became longer and his head shot at Alikard's neck. Just as he was about to bite down, did he lose the feeling of his neck and the rest of his body. Alikard had cut of his head. That bastard, he only played it. He fooled me, Orochimaru, the greatest of all Sannin, twice. How dare he mock me? I will make him pay. Orochimaru then forgot all his desires to obtain the body of Alikard and wanted to destroy him. Snakes came out of his head and torso and reattached them together. He then went through hand signs and said, "Die, fire style. Hell's punishment." With that he jumped in the air and spew out an enormous amount of flames on the ground, setting the entire area on fire. Orochimaru landed on a tree at the side looking at the inferno and then collapsed. Damn it, this body has reached his limits, I will have to return and transfer to a new body. At least have I destroyed him, what a shame, it was such a magnificent body. But he was cut of his musings by Alucard's laughter. Impossible, he should be nothing but a crisp. He then saw Alikard at the center of the inferno, the flames surrounding him but yet not touching him. Orochimaru didn't know if he should be scared or overjoyed by the fact that Alikard was still alive. Alikard then jumped and slashed at Orochimaru. Orochimaru just escaped his dysfunctional body by shedding it and transforming in his white snake form. He curled his body around a tree. Alikard looked at the giant snake and said maniacally, "Fitting that your real body would be like a snake, now slither away and make it all the sweeter for me." He then took out his guns and started shooting at Orochimaru. Orochimaru on the other hand was slithering from tree to tree, buying the time necessary for the poison that his body produces to work. Alikard, who was still shooting, noticed through his sense of smell that something was in the air but wasn't affecting his body in the slightest. He then made two foxes of shadow and they started to sneak on Orochimaru. Orochimaru was too busy dodging to notice the two foxes. He then was pounded by one of the foxes, they fell of the tree on the ground, and was then attacked by the second fox as well. When Orochimaru noticed by what he was attacked, he had a hunch who he was dealing with. The foxes, were clawing and biting the Sannin, were then attacked by snakes coming from Orochimaru's body. They retaliated by each growing an arm on their back. In the hand of those arms were the jackal and castle, which the foxes used to annihilate the snakes. Orochimaru then tried to move away, but Alikard appeared and placed Kabikirabocho at Orochimaru's neck. Orochimaru then looked up and spat acid at Alikard's eyes. Alikard just made a hole in his head, allowing the acid to pass through. Alikard then made the foxes back to shadows and bounded Orochimaru's arms to the ground with them. "You know who I am, don't you?" Orochimaru then knew with certainty who Alikard was. How did you cheat death? They didn't left a piece of you." Alikard just said, "That will be part of the torture I have thought up for you. To never know how I surpassed you, now prepare for your suffering." He then bit on Orochimaru's body, sucking the blood. The experiments on his body made the blood taste horrible, but Alikard persevered. He then got Orochimaru's memories, gaining a lot of information on his enemies. He changed back to his normal form with the hat and glasses and went back on his way to Kiri. Alikard stood now in front of the arena in Kiri. The arena was bigger than normal due to the circumstances, but Alikard had seen bigger ones. He had decided to change his appearance to the one he took in Rio, Brazil. His hair reached his chest and had two bangs at the sides. He wore a gray costume with underneath it a red shirt and a black tie. He completed his look with his typical orange glasses and gloves, but this time he did not display the symbols that normally adorned them. He had Kabikirabocho stored away. He chose this look because if he went in his normal look he would be held back by the shinobi of Kiri, and he was already late due to his fight with Orochimaru. While those clothes were known in the elemental nations, it didn't stop anyone in the streets from looking at the man with the strange clothes. He then was addressed by a shinobi from Kiri. "Hello sir, you're late, the first round is almost done. The last battle is almost done. Now can you show your entrance ticket?" Alikard took out the document out of his jacket and showed it to the guard. He inspected it and saw nothing special. "You can go through, your seat is at the box for the daimyo and other influential people." Alikard then walked to his place. It appeared that he had a place in a corner at the back of his box. The box was right next to the one of the cages and their guards. He then silently took his place and looked at the match. It seems that the two genin were doing their last attack since they both looked tired and injured. The stage was nothing but a replica of the moon with water. They both went through hand signs. Explosive style, exploding rock. The genin, who came from Iwagakure, placed his hands on the ground and a rock levitated, and with a palm thrust he sent it at the other genin. Water style. Gunshot. The Kiri nin then drew water out of the little lake inside the arena and formed 2 spheres of water. He sent them one after another at his opponent. The 2 jutsu then hit each other. The exploding rock connected with the first water sphere and exploded. While it did stop the first water sphere, it let the second water sphere pass through safely. The water jutsu then hit the exhausted Iwa nin head on, knocking him out. The proctor checked the nin and said, "Winner of the last match of the first round, Hikari of the Mist." The crowd applauded for both shinobi, apparently performed both genin very well. Alikard couldn't care less. He was busy searching through the stands for a blue-haired female with lavender. Since every major clan was invited, he knew that the Hyuga would be here. They would never leave a chance to raise their standing. And if the Hyuga would be here, then there was a chance that Hinata would be here. He then found his target. He could not deny that she did become more beautiful over the years. She grew her hair till it reached her waist, the hair at her sides, her shoulders. She also wore a lavender kimono that matched with her eyes. He also could see that she lost her timidity by the way she sat, but there was one thing that bothered Alikard. It was like that the way she looked now, it just felt wrong. It's like that she looks like Hinata, acts like Hinata, but she wasn't Hinata. Alikard also felt that he had seen this before, a long time ago. The answer eluded the ancient vampire and it annoyed the count to no end. He then looked at the arena floor. It seems that during his distraction the cleaning group made the stage to its previous state. It was actually a pretty simple design. It was a flat ground with some rocks the size of an average genin, some a bit bigger, some smaller. In the center stood a shallow pond that covered half the stage. We now announce a break of half an hour to allow the genin to recover their strength. In the meantime we will allow an exhibition match against one of our finest shinobi," said the proctor, and a shinobi then appeared with a shunsen. He had short blue hair and dark eyes. He wore cow-patterned shorts, a blue-striped shirt and sandals. His appearance was completed by his glasses, which are connected to ear protectors. On his back you could see a bandaged sword with 2 hilts that are connected by a cord. It was Haramekure. The holster for said sword was on his chest and contained Chojiro's forehead protector. While he was a swordsman of the mist he looked quite unsure and meek, but he then looked at the cage's box and saw the Mizukage smile at him. He then straightened up and his look changed to one of determination. All the cages except the Mizukage were quite surprised by this revelation. An exhibition match with a Chunin was unheard of. There was a reason why they didn't display their Chunin exams. Onoki of both scales commented on this. "You're taking a foolish gamble on this one, youngster. Any shinobi worth his salt would never accept this challenge. He would just show all his skills to the enemy." Next to the Tsuchikage stood his guards Akatsuki and Kuritsuchi. The Raikage then responded, "You're forgetting that the crowd doesn't know this. So if no one responds to the challenge then the crowd will think that we are afraid of him, boosting the reputation of Kiri. And if someone agrees then Kiri will get a match where they can show the crowd that they aren't weak even after their war. So it is a win-win situation for Kiri. But it's strange that you took a swordsman of the mist, Mizukage. How are you sure that he is a swordsman? The sword could just have a strange shape," inquired Gaara, who sat next to the Raikage. "My foolish brother has an infatuation with swords, so he was always rambling about them, especially those of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. That blade is Haramekure, the sword that controls chakra." Next to him stood Killer Bee, Jinchuriki of the 8 Tails, and Darui, inheritor of the Sandame's Black Lightning style. "Bro, you actually listened to what I said, instead of smacking my head." The Raikage sighed at his younger brother's rapping habits and said in an annoyed yet dangerous tone, "B, if you don't stop rapping you shall receive my iron claw." B took a step back, placed his hands in protective manner and said, "You don't have to use the claw this time, cause this will be Killer B's last rhyme." Might Guy, one of the Hokage's bodyguards, was about to shout of youth, but one look from Tsunade shut him up. Her other bodyguard was busily reading his porn. The proctor then said, "Is there anyone in the stands that want to fight Chojiro, one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist?" The entire crowd was silent for a moment. Killer B would love to, but one look from his brother stopped him. A voice then came from the stands. "I will fight him, but I will have to change clothes." The crowd then looked surprised that the voice came from the seats reserved for the daimyo. They weren't really fighters and their guards aren't allowed in there. The cages and their guards looked suspiciously at him. The Sand siblings and Kakashi recognized the voice. The Sand siblings were silent, but Kakashi then whispered in the Hokage's ear. "Hokage-sama, that man over there is Alikard." The Hokage didn't show any sign to the news, but inwardly she was furious. How dare that piece of shit show his face right here? He killed my men and then he dares to show his face here. Alikard then stood up and went to the stairs. When he saw that there was no one nearby, he changed his form to his normal one and went towards the stage. Down the stage you could see Chojuro and the proctor waiting. Chojuro still maintained his look of determination. He then saw two orange orbs coming from one of the entrances. Alikard then left of the comfort of the shade and waited at the edge of the pond. When the shinobi saw Alikard walking with his red coat and hat, they all had looks of surprise. The Mizukage maid Terumi gained a look of concern. She has heard the stories of Alikard and none of them were good. The Raikage then started to laugh. It seems that a monkey wrench is thrown in your plans. Now what are you going to do? Continue this match and possibly lose your swordsman, or stop this match and lose what little reputation your country has? The Mizukage concentrated for a moment and said, "Let the battle continue." "So that's the infamous Impaler of Wave? He doesn't look like much," commented the Tsukikage. "Looks can be deceiving. He killed both Sasori of the Red Sands and Deidara the Mad Bomber. Two nin who are both S-rank missing nin," said Gaara, his siblings attentively watching Alikard. They all were curious what he was capable of. "Well, we see now what's he capable of. He looks quite hot though. Aoi." The Mizukage's guard then took this as a sign to shut up or feel the Mizukage's wrath. The cage's attention was aimed at the stage and the shinobi there. "May I know your name, mister?" was the proctor's question to Alikard. "Chitsuki Alikard." The proctor then addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the battle between Chojuro and Chitsuki Alikard. The same rules as in the exams apply in this match. Everything is allowed, but when your opponent forfeits or I say it so, you stop immediately. Now let this battle begin." Chojuro didn't waste any time and took out Haramekure. He then took a stance, each hand on a different handle of the blade. Alikard on the other hand slowly took a hilt out of his coat. When Chojuro saw the hilt, he paled a bit. He recognized it. That was the hilt of Kabikirabocho. He wondered where the blade was, but then he remembered a little fact about Kabikirabocho. The sword had two abilities. The first was worldwide known. It uses the blood to repair the blade in case it was damaged. The second ability was that the metal made by it could be easily converted to the blood it was made from by its user. The metal didn't even had to connect with the hilt. The reason why almost knew about this ability wasn't because it was meant to be a secret. No, it was rather that nobody knew how to effectively this ability. Even Mangetsu, who mastered all 7 swords, only used this ability when he was in a pinch. He then was snapped out of his musings when blood seeped through the fabric from the coat on Alikard's arm. The blood then flowed towards Kabikirabocho. The sword greedily absorbed the blood and reformed himself to his former glory. Alikard then took a stance. The two swordsmen looked at each other and charged. The battle between Alikard and Chojuro began very simple with a swing. Both swordsmen decided to test each other with the swing. When the two swords connected, they each could tell that the other was skilled in the art of the sword. Chojuro then noticed that Alikard had the advantage due to him being stronger. He then jumped back and unraveled the bandages around Haramekure. Chakra then started to seep out of the 2 holes and started covering the entire sword. Chojuro then pumped more chakra in his sword and used it to form a hammer. He swung it at Alikard, who blocked with the flat side of Kabikirabocho, and Alikard slid backwards till he was at the edge of the stadium. Chojuro then reformed his hammer into a 4-meter-long sword and tried to cut Alikard, who just jumped in air and then swung Kabikirabocho. This confused the crowd, but the shinobi on the other hand noticed that an object was launched at Chojuro. Chojuro immediately made a slab of chakra, just in time because the projectile slammed into it. Chojuro had to use all his power to maintain his stance. He even had to channel chakra to the ground so that he didn't slide away. When Chojuro inspected the projectile that was embedded in the chakra that surrounded his blade, he noticed that it was the first 20 centimeters of Kabikirabocho. Alikard then landed on the pond using his ability to levitate. He then charged Chojuro while launching other parts of his blade at the Kiri-nin, giving him no chance to retaliate. Interesting, I didn't know that Kabikirabocho could separate himself, said the Hokage. It is an ability that isn't used, but I'm very amused. When the Raikage heard the rhyme, he stood up and dragged B to back of the box. The others could hear the sound of a little struggle, but ignored it. Gaara even asked, Mizukage, can you tell us how Alikard launches part of his blade? The Mizukage thought about it and decided to tell it since the sword wasn't in Kiri's possession anymore. Kabikirabocho has two abilities. It can use blood to repair itself. The second is that the metal made by this method can revert it back to the blood it was made. He uses this ability when he swing his blade. He makes one thin layer of blood separating apart from the blade. The blood that was made is then being converted back, leaving no signs of it. The momentum launches the piece that was separated from the main blade. The Raikage then came back, with no wounds. The others looked at the back and saw a bruised killer bee with a lump on his head. The Hachibi decides that now was the time to contact his host. B, watch out for this Alikard. Of course, Mr. 8. Dismissed B. That's not it. If you ever meet this guy in battle, run. What are you talking about? Together we can beat him, no doubt. B, I'm serious. You can't beat him even with my help. B then frowned a bit. On his own was he strong, but together he was even stronger. Almost nobody could be able to beat him. What makes you think that? It's just a feeling that I have. B then became serious. When a Baiju had feeling, you could rely on it. The Kyuubi could even determine if someone was lying to him and what his intentions are. I see, thanks Mr. 8, greetings from me. On the stage you could see a stalemate between Alikard and Chojuro. The Kabikirabocho was reduced to a giant hilt with a 10-centimeter blade attached to it. Chojuro then made tendril of chakra and tried to attack Alikard with it. Alikard jumped back, but it didn't stop him from getting his arm scraped by the tendril. Chojuro was panting slightly, while Alikard didn't show any signs of slowing down. Chojuro did have an advantage though. Kabikirabocho was a lot smaller, the pieces were on the ground. But that advantage didn't last long when Alikard said, "It seems that Kabikirabocho is hungry, I guess I will have to feed it." He then commanded the separated parts of Kabikirabocho to revert back into blood. The blood then flew back towards the Kabikirabocho, restoring it. Chojuro then decided to switch tactics and placed Haramekure back into its holster and went through hand signs. Hidden mist jutsu. The entire area was covered by a dense mist, allowing no one except the users of the Byakugan to see through it. The crowd wasn't clearly happy with the situation, but they still were on the edge of the seat waiting for the mist to clear. For a moment nothing happened till a voice was heard through the mist. Forfeit. The mist retreated, showing the crowd the situation. Alikard had his blade against Chojuro's neck. He was clearly shocked that he didn't hear Alikard coming. He wasn't an expert like Zabuza, but he wasn't bad at it either. Then he was curious about another thing. How did you found me? Alikard just said, look closer at Kabikirabocho. Chojuro inspected the blade and found nothing until he saw a little chip in the blade. He then looked at his feet and saw a little bit of blood on it. He must have placed it when directed the blood back his sword and then used it to track me. Alikard then commanded the blood to return at the blade, which he placed on his back. The proctor then said, "Winner Chitsuki Alikard." The crowd then applauded the two shinobi. Alikard was about to leave, but then a messenger arrived by Shunsen. The Mizukage asked for you to come to the box. Please don't go by Shunsen, the guards could possibly attack you. The messenger then left with a Shunsen. Alikard and Chojuro both went to the cage's box in silence. When Chojuro arrived, he kneeled. I'm sorry, Mizukage-sama, I couldn't manage to beat him. When the Mizukage heard those words, she smiled at him and said, Chojuro, I can't expect you to win against AS rank nin. You did your job magnificently, now rest. Chojuro blushed a bit and left. Alikard's attention on the other hand wasn't aimed at the Mizukage but at the Hokage, who was constantly glaring at him. Alikard then decided to antagonize her a bit more. Could you please stop glaring at me? We're supposed to be here as civilized people, not act like children. How dare you say that after you slaughtered my men? Alikard then lost his usual smirk and said, those men came here, armed to the teeth, ready to perform their duty, to kill for their duty, to die for their duty. That's all there is to it. War is a gamble and you gambled with weak cards and lost. So don't blame me for their deaths. So you're telling me that I'm responsible for their death? Asked the Hokage with fury. You're the cage, in the end you're responsible for your men's fate. A silence ensued between the two, but that the tension was gone. But since the two weren't speaking, Temari took this as a chance to ask Alucard something, though a bit nervously because she still was one of his drinking preferences. Alucard-san, why did you impale those men? For two reasons. The first one is to strike fear into the hearts of my enemy. And the second one? Was her response, but deep down Temari knew the answer Alucard would give, but she needed the confirmation. It's fun. You're a monster, was the Hokage's response. But aren't we all in the same boat? This answer confused one red-haired Kage. Explain yourself. You may be hailed as saints and protectors in your village, but when it comes to your enemies you're nothing but the greatest monster. You would kill them without a moment of hesitation. You would even start wars if it benefit you or your village. Even now you're sending genin to battle which can kill them. We call it the Chunin exams, and for what? Just a bit of money. Face it, we're nothing but incorrigible warmongers. When Alikard was done, three of the Kage had the decency to reflect on their own actions, which they did as Kage or even as a normal. They all knew that Alikard was right. The Mizukage was reminded how she used her boil release and lava release to reduce her opponents into puddles of lava or blood. The Rikage remembered how his punches destroyed his opponents. But the one who had the most problems with it was the Case Kage. He first saw how he crushed his opponents with his sand before he is saved from his loneliness and after he was saved from it. There were only two things different. The first was that in the beginning he did at random, but now he does it only when he has an obstacle in his missions. The second was that he doesn't get as much satisfaction from it in comparison with the past. But the way he did was just the same. He still can see how both Gaaras trap their opponents in his sand due to several schemes. They then both extend their hand and spread their fingers. They finished their movements by forming a fist, making the sand crush their opponents, feeding the sand with blood. Is there really no difference? Is everything I did a lie? Is everything I do in vain? Will I always remain a monster? Temari saw the distress on his little brother's face and was about to lash at Alikard, but she was stopped by Kankuro. No words were spoken between the two, but their eyes said it all. She then stopped, but not before giving Alikard an accusing stare. The other heir affected differently. Onoki did saw truth behind Alikard's words, but he couldn't care less. War is necessity in the shinobi. Without war, the shinobi would lose their job. Tsunade, on the other hand, didn't believe a single one of those words. She was Tsunade of the Sani, not a monster. But she decided that isn't worth the effort to discuss this with him. He will be dead soon enough, she will make sure of that. Now that the banter is over and the matches will start soon, I will go back to my seat. Alikard then went back to his seat in the stand where he was felicitated by most of the people there, but he couldn't care less. Alikard then watched the next fights. In the end the tournament was won by a Suna nin with the genin of Kiri as a close second, but the genin from Suna won through superior tactics in combination with puppetry. Yes. Kankuro was very proud of his apprentice. The Kages, daimyos and other influential people went back to their rooms preparing for the dancing event, while the remaining people went back to their daily lives. The Mizukage was about to go, but she was stopped by Aoi. Mizukage-sama, I have some information that you need to hear. The Mizukage then sighed. She really wanted to relax for a moment. Events like this take a lot of planning and time. She really was stressed and would love to take a nerve-calming bath. Can't it wait? It is about Alikard. She then knew that her bath would have to wait for a moment. Then make it quick. He has no chakra at all, and I checked with my Byakugan, then I double-checked it with my sensor abilities. This piece of information surprised her. Then how did he stand on the water? I don't know. But there is another thing bothers me. It is that he got a little wound during his fight, but afterwards I didn't even see a sign of it afterwards, and there wasn't even a tear on his clothes. The Mizukage then quickly assessed the situation and saw that nothing could be done for now. Aoi, we will do nothing. Aoi was clearly surprised and started to warn the Mizukage. Mizukage, we need to make arrangements, he is clearly dangerous. Make arrangements? We need a way to parry his moves. Did he just imply about making an arrangement for me to marry? Aoi wasn't aware of the Mizukage's interpretation of his words and just continued. We can't let a dangerous man like him create havoc in our city. Aoi, shut up or I'll kill you. She then left for her room, leaving Aoi confused. How dare that piece of shit show up in this room and accuse me of being a monster? That was the voice of a Hokage that was a little bit drunk. Her guards, Kakashi and Guy, were smart enough to keep their mouths shut, or otherwise they would feel her wrath. I will crush that crimson fucker's balls and then impale him in the ass with those flagpole he likes so much. While Tsunade was ranting, both Guy and Kakashi weren't idle. Guy was busy with his workout while Kakashi was reading his smut while thinking on Alucard's abilities. Levitation? Water manipulation? It could explain why he could control blood. What a strange bloodline he has. Single quote. In the room of the case cage was the situation the same as the Hokage's one blonde female ranting about one fanged, black-haired man with the other two silent. How dare he say that? I don't care who he was in his past life. You aren't a monster, Gaara. You know that, right? She was lucky that no one was hearing what she said, or Alucard's secret would revealed to the world. Gaara, who was staring at the sunset, remained silent. Gaara, you know that, right? Gaara? Gaara didn't respond, but Kankuro answered in his place. The words that Alikard, I mean Naruto, has said, affected him very much. Gaara tried the last 3 years to change. Now Alikard said that all his effort and achievements were in vain. He made the foundation of Gaara's world shake. Alikard then entered the case cage's room through the ceiling. You should be more silent. You could have revealed my identity. We were lucky that nobody was around. What are you doing here? Said Temari with a bit of anger in her voice. I was enjoying the sunset on the roof since my room doesn't have any windows facing in that direction. But then I heard you talking about me, so I decided to warn you. Temari was about to retort, but Gaara then asked. Alikard, be honest, did I change? Alikard understood the question and knew what caused it. He then said, you did. You were at first a beast and you then changed to a monster. When Gaara heard Alikard's words, he smiled a bit. I can live with that. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.